Chapter 732. Lei Wu Bei, Shichang Shao, Meng Hongqin, Solitary Falcon, and the other great masters who had been following Chu Bei all this time seemed to have lost their ability to think. They stood motionless on the spot, as if they were made of wood. They stared blankly at Chu Bei in a daze. The end of the war for seizing the heavens was too sudden and unexpected, catching them off guard. "How do you think he compares to Lord Nine Nether?" Duan Wuya looked at Mo Xiao Yao and Butian Xie and muttered. "He should have reached the same level as Lord Nine Nether back then." Butian Xie looked at Chu Bei's back and took a deep breath. The war for seizing the heavens had been going on for 10,000 years. Every time, blood flowed like a river, and the casualties were extremely heavy. But now, this mysterious expert of unknown origin had single-handedly quelled the entire foreign race army. Moreover, he appeared to be so calm and composed, as though this was a trivial matter that he could do in passing. "Mo Xie, you've really found yourself an incredible master," Jun Wui said as he patted Jun Mo Xie's shoulder. "Hee, this is my fate." Jun Mo Xie looked at Chu Bei and smiled at Jun Wui. In that moment, whether it was the human experts or the Xian beasts of Tian Fa, everyone's eyes were focused on Chu Bei. And at this moment, Chu Bei turned to look at Duan Wuya, Butian Xie, and Mo Xiao Yao. Meeting Chu Bei's gaze, Duan Wuya, Butian Xie, and Mo Xiao Yao's bodies trembled inexplicably, as if they had suddenly fallen into an unstoppable ice cellar. But at this moment, they also felt a sense of relief. They had all sent people to capture Chu Bei, and they had given the order to do so by hook or by crook, regardless of life or death. In their minds, the reason why the other party was looking at them now was because of what had happened before. Fortunately, the war for seizing the heavens had already ended with the outsiders' army's annihilation. Even if they died, they had no regrets. 10,000 years ago, the three of you took it as your duty to protect the Xian continent. But gradually, when the human race became strong enough to resist the foreign race's army, the three holy lands began to compete with each other, as if they wanted to control the entire continent. Chu Bei looked at Duan Wuya and the other two, his voice cold. "Now that the foreign races have been annihilated by this king, there is no longer a so-called war for seizing the heavens, and there is no need for the three holy lands to exist. As for the three of you, for the fact that you sent people to attack me, you can use 1,000 years in prison as compensation." As his voice trailed off, Chu Bei waved around his robe. Instantly, 3 rays of light enveloped Duan Wuya and the other two, completely sealing them. Bang! 3 sky-piercing light beams wrapped around Duan Wuya, and Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie, smashing into the area where the Pillar of Heaven's mountains used to be. Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the 3 sky-piercing light beams transformed into 3 dazzling golden mountains, soaring into the sky. Seeing Duan Wuya, Mo Xiao Yao, and Butian Xie being suppressed by Chu Bei with their own eyes, the expressions of the experts below changed greatly. However, even the experts of the 3 holy lands did not dare to make a sound at this moment. They all looked at Chu Bei in fear, as if afraid that he would also suppress them. "Although the 3 holy lands no longer exist, if you have nowhere else to go, you can join the All Heavens shop that this king created. The All Heavens shop's cultivation techniques are greatly beneficial even to you so-called saint monarchs." Chu Bei's calm gaze swept across the experts below, and a strand of his spirit entered their consciousness. "All Heavens shop?" The experts who had never heard of the All Heavens shop looked at each other and murmured, deeply engraving this name in their hearts. Boom! The moment Chu Bei's spirit entered everyone's consciousness, he punched even higher into the sky. Following that, there was a loud explosion, and the clouds were swept away. The distant sky seemed to have been sliced apart by a giant sword, splitting into 2. Suddenly, a blinding light shot out from the hole in the sky, causing everyone to subconsciously close their eyes. Rumble. It was also at this time that the experts heard the sounds of an intense battle. Looking over, there were 2 figures fighting fiercely in the hole in the sky, and all kinds of supreme treasured techniques flew everywhere. "What's going on with that battlefield?" The experts stared blankly at the 2 figures in the hole, and their expressions changed greatly when they felt the energy fluctuations that were seeping out from within. Just a strand of the battle's aftershock was enough to suppress them to the point of suffocation, and their bodies went limp. Lord Nine Nether! Just as everyone was watching the battle with faces full of confusion, a Saint Venerable seemed to recognize one of the two figures, and his eyes narrowed. When the Saint Venerable exclaimed, the other experts reacted one after another, and then their expressions all stiffened. It really is Lord Nine Nether! Then who is the person fighting with him? Is that where he ascended 10,000 years ago? But there seems to be no other living beings in that hole other than the guy fighting with Lord Nine Nether. Everyone's eyes were focused on the battlefield as they discussed. Nine Nether, when I took over this large territory 3 years ago, you started fighting with me. You and I are equal in strength, and continuing to fight is just a waste of time. Why don't we stop here and have a good rest? When you can really defeat me, I will let you enter the chaotic great territory. At this time, a voice came from the hole. The figure called Nine Nether ignored the person who spoke and continued to use supreme treasure techniques, unleashing terrifying killing attacks. Rumble, the battle continued. But inexplicably, a ripple suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Under this ripple, the two figures fighting were instantly blasted away, and the distance between them increased. Lord Senior has joined the battlefield. Which side do you think Senior is from? Will he help Lord Nine Nether, or another person? That's hard to say. Senior saved the Xian continent, so logically speaking, he should help Lord Nine Nether. After all, Lord Nine Nether also came from the Xian continent. But Senior's origin is unknown. Perhaps he came from that hole, and is the companion of that black-robed man? Looking at Chu Bei, who had suddenly appeared on the battlefield, the experts of the Xian continent below were shocked, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. Who are you? The Nine Nether First young master's gaze was fixed on Chu Bei, who had suddenly joined the battlefield. After sizing him up, he realized that he couldn't see through the other party. Could it be that you are also from the Xian continent? But why isn't there a trace of Xian on your body? The Nine Nether First young master looked at the hole, and after glancing at the experts below, he looked at Chu Bei and asked again. Chu Bei glanced at the Nine Nether First young master indifferently and didn't answer the other party's question. Instead, he looked at another figure, which was the guardian of the Xian continent. Chapter 733. All Heaven's Shop Master! Greetings, Celestial Emperor! However, to Chu Bei's surprise, before he could even open his mouth, the Xian continent's overseer spoke first. He cupped his hands respectfully and bowed deeply. His expression was filled with respect. The Nine Nether First young master was stunned. His mouth was wide open, and he was in a daze. In his opinion, the sentinel came from a higher-level world, and was an invincible existence in the Xian continent. Even he had seen tens of thousands of years of cultivation before he could reach the sentinel's level. And now, the sentinel was bowing to a mysterious person of unknown origin. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Heavens! That person is bowing to Senior again. Why? How does he know that Master is the All Heaven's Shop Master? Wasn't the All Heaven's Shop just recently established? Could it be that the All Heaven's Shop that he's talking about isn't the All Heaven's Shop in the Tianxiang Imperial City? Senior also established the All Heaven's Shop in other places. Celestial Emperor? Could it be that this is the realm that Senior is in? But why isn't there any record of this realm in the ancient books? The experts of the Xian continent below were also shocked by the sentinel's bow. This scene was too sudden, and they couldn't react for a while. You know this seat? Chu Bei looked at the sentinel calmly, and a smile gradually rose on his lips. Whether it was the sentinel or the Nine Nether First young master, they were both at the peak of the third layer of the immortal king realm. Celestial Emperor, my name is Kuei-in, and I was born in the high heavens. First, you killed the 100 Flowers Empress, then took the Source Heaven Stone Mine from the combined forces of the Undermoon Empress, the Barren Immortal Emperor, and the Xingqiong Immortal Emperor. Then, you defeated the creator primordial spirit of the high heavens, and finally became the first on the immortal emperor ranking board. The black-robed man was very respectful, and continued, There were rumors that you were already dead, but I didn't expect the rumors to be false. The moment you appeared, I naturally recognized you. 3 years ago, I was appointed as the Yellow Sentinel to guard the Xian continent. I didn't expect to meet you here. Yellow Overseer? Hearing the man in black's words, Chu Bei's interest was piqued. There are different levels of sentinels? In the planes that he had already passed through, the guardians were almost all at the great perfection immortal emperor realm. Only this guy in front of him was only at the immortal king realm. Lord Immortal Emperor, how could you not know the level of the overseer? Hearing Chu Bei's question, the black-clothed man's face carried a hint of surprise. Chu Bei calmly looked at the black-clothed man, ignoring his question. Noticing Chu Bei's gaze, the black-clothed man seemed to realize that he had blurted out something that he should not have said, and hurriedly said, Sir, according to what I know, there are 3 levels above the yellow rank overseer: heaven, earth, and profound. Which faction does the overseer belong to? Chu Bei continued to ask. My lord, Yuan Di was once ranked first on the immortal emperor rankings of the great domains of the primal chaos. The Origin Sky Pavilion he founded is also ranked first on the immortal emperor rankings. However, in the great domains of the primal chaos, there are some mysterious transcendent factions that don't participate in these 2 rankings. The black-clothed man looked respectfully at Chu Bei. I received an assignment to become a yellow rank overseer, which means I became a member of one of the transcendent factions. As for what this transcendent faction is called, I don't know. Who assigned you? What will happen if you don't accept it? Hearing the black-clothed man's words, Chu Bei gradually frowned. He thought of the so-called transcendent factions of the great domains of the primal chaos. One of them was the Zero faction, which had once invited him. Without being assigned, it's directly a projection of the great domains. At first, there were great perfection immortal emperors who resisted the order, but they were all killed by the mysterious force. It's said that there was even a true immortal emperor expert who was killed by the mysterious force. Because of this, anyone who receives an assignment, even if they are great perfection immortal emperors, must accept the order. Otherwise, what awaits them is only death. Speaking till here, the black-clothed man sighed faintly, his face full of helplessness. But fortunately, as the overseer of the great domains, when we face experts whose strength surpasses ours, we don't need to fight anymore and let them enter the great domains of the primal chaos. After hearing the black-clothed man's words, Chu Bei lightly replied, Then, are you going to stop this seat now? Of course not. The black-clothed man hurriedly shook his head and quickly retreated to the side. Chu Bei looked approvingly at the black-clothed man, then focused his eyes on the sky. Divine power surged on the surface of his fist, and he directly punched out. Accompanied by an earth-shattering boom, the end of the sky shattered, and an even larger and deeper hole appeared. It was also at this moment that all the experts, including the 9 Nether First Young Master, cast their gazes towards the gap. They saw a chaotic and misty world that they couldn't see clearly. Is that a higher-level world? The 9 Nether First Young Master muttered to himself. What is that place? Is it a brand new world? Can we go into that world? I want to go and take a look. Could it be that the reason why Lord 9 Nether fought with that mysterious man was to enter that world? Just as the crowd of Xian continent's experts were staring fixedly at the end of the crack, a misty aura suddenly gushed out from within. The misty chi spread very quickly, and in a few breaths' time, it filled every corner of the battlefield for seizing the heavens, rapidly spreading towards the entire Xian continent. This aura doesn't have a trace of Xian Qi fluctuation, but it gives me a feeling that it far surpasses the Xian Qi that we cultivate. As expected, that's an even stronger world. It's not something that our Xian continent can compare to. My bottleneck is loosening. Is it going to break through? I have the same feeling too. Gradually, the faces of the experts on the battlefield for seizing the heavens began to show signs of excitement. The energy of the great domains of the primal chaos filled the Xian continent, and those experts who were originally stuck at their bottlenecks all showed signs of loosening. Looking at the broken barrier, the black-robed man who was the guardian let out a faint sigh. His guardian mission had failed because of Chu Bei's appearance. Fortunately, the other party's reputation had already spread throughout the great domains of the primal chaos, and he wouldn't be punished because of this. Host has broken through the barrier between the Xian continent and the great domains of the primal chaos. Mission accomplished. The system's voice rang out in Chu Bei's mind. You, who exactly are you? Could it be that you're from that higher world? The Nine Nether First young master recovered from his shock and pointed at the hazy world above. He looked at Chu Bei and took a deep breath. The barrier between the two worlds has already been broken by this seat. With your talent, you should be able to defeat this guardian very quickly. When you enter the great domains of the primal chaos, you will naturally know who this seat is. Chu Bei looked at the strongest expert of the Xian continent in front of him and said with a smile, Great domains of the primal chaos, is that the name of that world? The Nine Nether First young master murmured as he felt the loosening bottleneck. He looked at the guardian again and said, Give me another 10 years, and I will definitely defeat you. Chapter 734. After breaking through the barrier between the two worlds and completing the mission, Chu Bei did not immediately go to the chaotic heavens. In the following time, he devoted himself wholeheartedly to Jun Mo's guidance. 3 days later, not far from the heaven shop, purple clouds rushed into the sky, accompanied by a crisp sound of breaking air. Accompanied by a loud shout, a figure soared into the sky and appeared in the void. He suddenly turned into a purple-white tiger, and the sound of bones grinding and flesh resounded from his body. He seemed to have undergone a metamorphosis, from his body to his spirit, and then to his spirit to communicate with the outside world. Everything had changed. In the roar, the purple-white tiger turned back into a human, and his aura rose to another level. Hearing this, the experts of Tian Fa and the supreme experts of the human race appeared immediately. Sky Xian Realm! This little guy from the Jun family really broke through. A 16-year-old Sky Xian Realm expert. Even the former Lord Nine Nether did not have such talent. I'm afraid he is the first person in the history of the Xian continent. But after thinking about it, it makes sense. His master is that mysterious senior. The eyes of the experts were fixed on Jun Mo, and they revealed a look of surprise. 7 days later. It was still in the area of Tian Fa Forest. Above the forest, heaven and earth were in a frenzy, and all kinds of lightning tribulation descended, covering the sky and earth. The area was completely submerged, and only a blurry figure could be seen resisting the tribulation in the lightning. Monster! This Jun family kid will be amazing when he grows up. Maybe it won't be long before he becomes the next Lord Nine Nether. No, he might even reach the same height as the senior. In just 4 days he went from the first level of the Sky Xian realm to the 9th level of the Sky Xian realm, and faced the divine Xian tribulation again. This Jun family kid is the senior's direct disciple, and the threaded thing in his body should be the inheritance that the senior gave him. What kind of immortal treasure is that? It actually contains so many transformational divine abilities. And so many terrifying methods! In the outer area, countless experts of the human race and Xian beasts were floating in the sky, looking at the blurry figure resisting the tribulation in the lightning with shock and envy in their eyes. Above the mountain range was a vast expanse of white. It was deafening as silver snakes danced about chaotically. There was lightning everywhere, as if it was a vast ocean. Brontosaurs streaked across the sky, not just one, but hundreds and thousands of them. Every bolt of lightning was as thick as a mountain ridge, dancing wildly in the void. At this moment, Jun Mo was hovering high in the sky, the illusory beast fruit in his body spinning wildly, changing its shape from time to time. He pointed out a finger, and tens of thousands of heavenly lightning bolts entered his body. Rumble! Along with the sound of thunder and lightning, an earth-shattering roar reverberated from Jun Mo's body. In an instant, Jun Moc's body emitted a resplendent light, and his aura rose to another level. Divine Profound Realm, success. After a long while, the lightning above the mountain range dissipated, and everything calmed down. Jun Moxie stretched his body and absorbed the power of the fruits into his body. Stepping through the air, he landed in front of Chu Bei and bowed deeply. Master, your disciple has broken through. Jun Moc's voice was filled with gratitude. Host, return to the great domain of chaos within 1 day. Is the time up? Chu Bei muttered to himself. With a wave of his right hand, the pitch-black stone brick in his sea of consciousness appeared in his palm. Before the sky market exploded, when he saw the golden disk and the system interface fly out of his control, he knew that the so-called system was not a dead object, but a living thing. What is it? Looking at the golden disk that appeared in front of him, Chu Bei asked. Origin Tool Catalog. A divine thought was transmitted from the golden disk. Specifics. Chu Bei looked forward and spat out 2 plain syllables. Before the great domain of chaos was born, the so-called origin of the world originated from the 18 origin tools. The 18 origin tools were extremely mysterious and contained supreme power. Countless immortal emperors did not hesitate to kill for them. But what are origin tools? How could they be controlled by existences that transcend the immortal emperors? The golden disk continued. Origin tools? The origin of the world? Chu Bei frowned. Has anyone ever controlled an origin tool? If the origin tool doesn't want to appear, even the strongest immortal emperor won't be able to find it. How can you control it? A disdainful message appeared in Chu Bei's sea of consciousness. Is there no way to find an origin tool? Chu Bei asked again. Yes, this method is the origin tool catalog. A branch on the golden disk extended and pointed at the pitch-black stone brick. The pair of eyes in the sky market? Chu Bei remembered the pair of blood-red eyes that appeared in the sky market that made his heart palpitate. At that time, he was already at the 9 stars realm, but when he met those blood-red eyes, a trace of fear still appeared in the depths of his heart. One of the origin tools. The golden disk replied calmly. You are also one of the origin tools? Chu Bei guessed. With a buzzing sound, a white and tender doll appeared on the golden disk. He shook his head at Chu Bei. My memory is incomplete. I remember some things very clearly, but I don't remember other things. When did you gain self-awareness? Chu Bei calmly looked at the white and tender doll, which was the system he had always relied on to survive. He was very sure that the system had no soul at the beginning, just like a lifeless machine. Ever since I absorbed half of the Source Heaven Stone mine, my consciousness slowly awakened. I know you have a lot of questions, but I can't give you the answers. Perhaps when you are truly invincible in this world, all your questions will be answered. As for the previous rewards, you should take a good look at them again. After saying that, the white and tender doll returned to the golden disk. Chu Bei was taken aback when he heard the white and tender doll's words. Then, his consciousness immediately returned to the system panel. He saw that the cultivation gift bags from before had all disappeared, and the Source Heaven interface had also changed. In addition, the funnel containing Source Heaven power had disappeared and was replaced by 3 floating azure cubes. However, upon closer inspection, one would find that the aura flowing within the cubes was exactly the same as the aura of Source Heaven power. This is the Source Heaven space. 3 cubes is the maximum number I can create for you. Every use has a time limit, and there will be a period of weakness after use. In short, you can't use the 3 Source Heaven spaces continuously. The system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's knowledge sea. Source Heaven space? How is this different from Source Heaven power? Chu Bei's consciousness shrouded the 3 floating azure cubes in the system panel. You should know that there are higher realms above the 9 stars, right? The system replied. Chu Bei nodded. Even on this mysterious battlefield, there were definitely existences above the 9 stars among the corpses. Chapter 735. The immortal Emperor realm can be subdivided into 3 major realms. The 9 stars immortal Emperor is only at the peak of the first realm, also known as the first Emperor realm. After the first Emperor realm is the second Emperor realm, and above that is the third Emperor realm. The system's voice rang out. Source Heaven power is a power that can only be controlled by the first Emperor realm 4 stars. As for the Source Heaven space, it is a divine ability that can only be touched by the second Emperor realm. As for the difference between the Source Heaven space and Source Heaven power, you will naturally understand when you use this power. What about the third Emperor realm? Chu Bei asked. Source Heaven world. The system replied again. However, just as Chu Bei was about to ask a few more questions, the system chose to remain silent and didn't answer. Chu Bei didn't ask any more questions. His divine sense instantly enveloped the world he had been in for countless years. At this moment, he was finally certain that he was no longer in the chaotic heavens. Although the size of this world couldn't be compared to the chaotic heavens, the power of the laws in the void was faintly higher than the chaotic heavens. In Chu Bei's opinion, this should also be a lost great domain. Whoosh! Chu Bei waved his sleeve, and a long river of time surged forth. Finally, he swept a glance at the mysterious battlefield below, and took a step forward. Chu Bei put his hands behind his back and stepped on the long river of time, going against the flow. In the process, he witnessed everything he had experienced. He saw the country where he was treated as an unknown creature and studied. He saw the battlefield between the 2 countries where he was swung around. He also saw the dark fire fox that had rescued them from underground. Across the long river of time, Chu Bei pointed a finger at the dark fire fox just as it was about to be killed. A majestic force instantly pierced through the void barrier and killed the dark fire fox's natural enemy. Mother, what's going on? How did it die? The young fox's face was full of surprise. I don't know. Anyway, we escaped this disaster. The adult dark fire fox was still in shock. Mother, that human is gone! The young fox pointed at the place where Chu Bei was supposed to be and cried out. Let's go. Good luck to him. The nether fire fox was also confused. How did the human it rescued from the underground disappear all of a sudden? The corners of Chu Bei's mouth curled up slightly as he watched the nether fire fox leave. Then, he looked ahead and continued to walk on the river of time. The speed of the river of time seemed to have slowed down. This was a small, remote village in the middle of a mountain range. However, the originally tranquil and peaceful mountain village was now a river of blood. Many villagers were lying in pools of blood. They no longer had any signs of life and had become corpses. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood, which was nauseating. In this huge village, other than the dead villagers, there was only a group of bandits with bloodthirsty eyes left. Boss, it's all settled! A bandit in red licked the blood on his blade. After kicking away the old woman he had just killed, he sheathed his blade and looked at the bandit leader. Red 9, can't you see that there are still some fish that escaped the net? The bandit leader looked at the red-clothed bandit and asked. Ninth brother, what are you waiting for? Don't tell me you sympathize with him? Another bandit laughed. When have I ever sympathized with someone under my blade? He's just a paralyzed piece of trash. The red-clothed bandit laughed. Then, he swung his blade at the figure on the ground who couldn't even move. Clang! However, just as the blade in the red-clothed bandit's hand was about to land on the figure's neck, a crisp clang was heard. The blade seemed to have been hit by an invisible shockwave and shattered into thousands of pieces. Then, before the red-clothed bandit could react, the invisible shockwave engulfed his body and turned his clothes into a bloody mess. What's going on? Boss, Red 9 is dead. Why is he dead? Did anyone see anything? Witnessing this scene, the group of bandits was stunned. They stared at the bloody mess on the ground with fear of the unknown in their eyes. Even the bandit leader, who was still on horseback, pulled out the large blade at his waist. His expression was extremely vigilant. It must have something to do with that piece of trash. All of you, attack him together! The bandit leader looked at Chu Bei with a flash of ruthlessness in his eyes. Yes, ninth brother's death must have something to do with him. Let's kill him together. Avenge ninth brother. The group of bandits looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. Then they walked toward the figure on the ground with their blades in hand. What an unforgettable scene! In the long river of time, Chu Bei watched the scene unfolding in the village. The smile on his face disappeared and a strong killing intent appeared in his eyes. Splash! The long river of time collapsed and Chu Bei's figure disappeared. In an instant, he pierced through the space-time barrier and entered the body of the figure on the ground who couldn't move at all. Almost at the same time, a ray of blue light enveloped the entire mountain village. It turned into countless dense blue light spots and slowly flew into the bodies of the dead villagers. Under these blue light spots, the wounds of the villagers healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Their cold bodies regained their vitality. Their pale faces also regained some color, and their breathing became labored. At this moment, the group of bandits had already surrounded Chu Bei on the ground. They shouted angrily and slashed down with their machetes. Bang! A similar scene played out once again. Before the machetes of the bandits could touch Chu Bei's body, it was as if they had come into contact with some kind of terrifying taboo. Under an invisible force, their bodies exploded one by one and turned into a rain of blood. Leader, third brother, fourth brother, and the others are also dead. Although that guy can't move, he definitely knows sorcery. He's very demonic. The remaining bandits pointed their fingers at Chu Bei, their faces filled with terror. Look at the villagers we killed. They're alive. They're all alive. How is this possible? The bandits had yet to recover from the strange deaths of their companions. In their eyes, an even more shocking scene played out. Even the bandit leader on horseback was shocked by the scene in front of him. His face was wooden and filled with shock. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't understand how all the villagers they had killed could suddenly come back to life. Didn't I die? How can I still be conscious? We're alive! We're alive again! We're alive from the dead! God must have taken pity on us. After the villagers came back to life, their faces were filled with joy. However, when they saw that the bandits who killed them were still there, their expressions became solemn again. However, they soon realized that these bandits were different from before. The latter's faces were filled with fear. Retreat! Retreat first! After the bandit leader regained his senses, he immediately gave orders to the rest of the bandits. Then, the bandit leader was the first to turn his horse around. However, just as he was about to leave, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked his way. Chapter 736. It's you! It's really you! Looking at Chu Bei, who was floating in the air with his feet off the ground, the bandit leader's pupils constricted and his expression changed abruptly. He was lying there just now. How could he be in front of the leader in an instant? He really knows sorcery. He killed third brother and fourth brother. The other bandits also looked frightened and stared at Chu Bei with great vigilance. The most shocked people were the villagers. They stared at Chu Bei with their eyes and mouths wide open. Their bodies were motionless, as if there was no wood in them. Isn't that little Chu? Isn't he paralyzed? How could he recover? Shh! Don't shout. Didn't you see that he was flying in the air? I knew he was different from us. How could anyone be in a coma for more than 3 months without eating or drinking and still be alive? Immortal! He must be an immortal! Do you remember that more than a month ago, when the claws of the ferocious beast in the mountain were about to land on Xiaohe, it suddenly died? Now it seems that it must have something to do with him. My God! Then do you think that our resurrection has something to do with him? The villagers fixed their eyes on Chu Bei. After the shock, they couldn't help but talk about it. Brother Chu. Xiaohe whispered softly. Suddenly, she felt that the familiar figure in the air not far away was a little strange. Chu Bei seemed to have heard Xiaohe's soft call. His cold face softened instantly. He turned to look at Xiao He with a smile on his face. No matter what sorcery you know, you'll die if you block the way, the bandit leader shouted. He held his broadsword with both hands and slashed fiercely at Chu Bei's head. Chu Bei didn't even look at the bandit leader. A ray of white light flew out from his body and swept past the bandit leader and the other bandits in an instant. At this moment, in the eyes of the villagers, they only felt a dazzling divine light shoot toward them. Then they saw the bandits and their horses evaporate instantly and turn into nothingness. They're gone, all gone! Great! Those bandits are all gone! The villagers were stunned for a moment before they hugged each other and cried out in excitement. After a long while, the villagers seemed to have remembered something. The clamor died down as everyone looked in Chu Bei's direction. Their faces were filled with cautiousness. After the old village chief bowed to Chu Bei, the other villagers followed suit and bowed. Old village chief, you don't have to do this. I'm still the little Wu you speak of. Your actions will make me feel alienated. Chu Bei stepped forward and appeared in front of the villagers. Immortal, how could we dare to address you as such? Wouldn't that shorten our lifespan? The old village chief waved his hand repeatedly. No matter what, he didn't dare to call Chu Bei Little Wu anymore. Brother Chu, are you done? Xiao He gritted her teeth and looked at Chu Bei with her big watery eyes. She wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. It seemed that she had a lot of questions to ask, but she didn't dare to open her mouth. Chu Bei naturally saw through Xiao He's thoughts. He stretched out his hand and patted her head, saying, The reason why I was in the deep mountains was because I was seriously injured in a fight with the enemy. That's why I was reduced to a cripple. Now, not only has my cultivation recovered, but it has also advanced to another level. As for you being attacked by the wild beasts and coming back from the dead, it was indeed me who did it. Chu Bei looked at Xiao He dotingly and took the initiative to answer the questions she wanted to ask. Brother Chu, since your cultivation has recovered, is it time to leave? Xiao He looked at Chu Bei with some reluctance. There will be a day when we meet again. Chu Bei pinched Xiao He's cheeks. Then, with a wave of his left hand, strands of light flew into the foreheads of all the villagers in the village. Everyone, that was the cultivation method of the All Heavens shop that I created. As long as you can cultivate according to the method described in it, not to mention those bandits from before, even people thousands of times more powerful than them won't be a match for you. When you reach the small success stage, you will be able to live forever and coexist with the heavens and earth. Chu Bei glanced at all the villagers. Thank you for taking care of me during this period of time. I also like this village very much. However, as time passes, it's time for me to return to my original life. Xiao He, do you want to leave with me? Chu Bei looked at Xiao He again. Brother Chu, where do you live? When I succeed in cultivating according to the cultivation method you gave me, I'll go look for you. As for now, I don't want to leave yet. Xiao He bit her lip. Her voice was very soft, as if she was afraid that Chu Bei would blame her. Chaos Great Domain, High Heavens, Emperor Province of the All Heavens Shop. Chu Bei touched Xiao He's face one last time. Then, he broke through the space-time barrier and stepped into the long river of time again. On the other side. In the Chaos Great Domain, in the world battlefield above the All Heavens Shop, the battle between the two 8-star immortal emperors was getting more and more intense. Majestic Genesis heaven energy collided with each other, constantly intertwining and fusing. The experts watching the battle trembled in fear, as if they were afraid that the aftershocks of their battle would break through the world battlefield's barrier and bombard their bodies. In the high heavens, more and more immortal emperors appeared above the All Heavens Shop. Even the sect masters of the Dragon Spring Sect and Divine Path Mountain, who were peak 8-star immortal emperors, were watching the intense battle in the world battlefield seriously. However, although the battle was already in a white-hot state, it was still impossible to tell who was stronger between Immortal Emperor Lan Hui and the mysterious 8-star Immortal Emperor. The two of them were evenly matched. Rumble! However, while the two 8-star Immortal Emperors were locked in a stalemate, golden Genesis heaven energy suddenly appeared on the battlefield. The appearance of this energy instantly broke the stalemate because the golden Genesis heaven energy was attacking Immortal Emperor Lan Hui. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui hurriedly blocked the attack, but his 130 drops of Azure Genesis heaven energy were not worth mentioning in front of the golden Genesis heaven energy, and instantly shattered. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui was struck by the golden Genesis heaven energy and was sent flying. His face turned pale. What's going on? Immortal Emperor Lan Hui was suddenly seriously injured. A new Immortal Emperor expert has joined the battlefield. Look! It's the mysterious 9 stars Immortal Emperor. So, the rumors are true. The 9 stars Immortal Emperor's Genesis heaven energy is golden. The battlefield was calm. When the spectating experts saw the newcomer clearly and recognized his identity, they immediately cried out in surprise. Are you representing yourself or the Origin Sky Pavilion behind you? If it's the latter, the title of the number 1 faction in the Chaos Great Domain should change hands. A middle-aged man in a red robe stood expressionlessly beside the 8-star Immortal Emperor and looked coldly at Immortal Emperor Lan Hui. Chapter 737. Lan Hui Immortal Emperor stabilized his aura and frowned as he looked at the red-robed middle-aged man with a grave expression. Although he was only 1 star away from the red-robed middle-aged man's cultivation base, this was a qualitative difference. Just from the color of the Genesis heaven power, one could tell that the two were not on the same level. Fellow cultivator, you're really arrogant. Don't tell me you're looking down on the Genesis heaven pavilion? At this moment, an angry roar drifted from the battlefield and reverberated throughout the entire chaotic grand domain. In the next instant, a huge circular hole appeared in the world battlefield above the All Heavens shop. Amidst the buzzing sounds, all kinds of strange phenomena appeared in the gap, and a dazzling golden path extended out. Then, the sound of the great Tao rang out as a figure slowly walked out. It was a man dressed in simple green robes. The moment he appeared, the energy in the world battlefield seemed to have been sealed. The green-robed man placed his hands behind his back as his indifferent gaze swept across the spectating Immortal Emperors. Then, his gaze landed on the 9 stars Immortal Emperor from the mysterious faction with an indifferent expression. Lord Origin Emperor! He's also here! Golden Genesis Heaven Power! This time, it's his true body. As expected of a 9 stars Immortal Emperor. Even though I'm also an Immortal Emperor, I can still feel the suffocating aura from them even though we're separated by the world battlefield. How terrifying! It seems that Immortal Emperor Lan Hui not only represents himself by helping the All Heavens shop, but the entire Genesis Sky Pavilion. In the square, the group of experts fixed their gazes on the green-robed man. Their faces were filled with astonishment. While the mysterious faction's 9 stars Immortal Emperor and Origin Emperor appeared in the world battlefield, the high-star Immortal Emperors from the other major regions also made their moves. In a certain major region in the northwestern region, a graceful figure disappeared from the peak of a sacred mountain shrouded in immortal mist and surrounded by a river of stars. In the blink of an eye, the graceful figure appeared above the All Heavens shop. She occupied a corner of the void, her clothes fluttering in the wind as she solemnly looked at the world battlefield. Her lively eyes seemed to have never been baptized by heaven and earth. Endless great Tao intertwined in her eyes. A clash between the Origin Sky Pavilion and the supernatural forces? The graceful woman muttered softly. Her gaze seemed to be able to see through a myriad of regions with a single glance, and it was capable of comprehending all karma. Her exquisite and flawless features were outlined with a slightly solemn expression. In a certain large region in the southeast, there was a barren land devoid of life. There were only a few fallen leaves on the grayish-brown earth, cold and lonely. Desolation and emptiness coexisted. There were a few huge rocks scattered on the ground. At first glance, they looked like tombstones. The sky was dim, and the faint black fog added a gloomy feeling to this barren land. It was distant and deathly still, without any signs of life. Is it really necessary for you to go to such lengths for the sake of an all-heavens shop? Although the All-Heavens shop master had also stepped into the 9 stars stage, he had ultimately fallen. In the depths of the boundless earth, an ethereal voice came from afar, and then another figure appeared above the All-Heavens shop. In a certain large region in the far north, there was a boundless sea of blood. It seemed to be the convergence of the blood of a supreme expert after his death, and it carried a pungent stench. Amidst the soul-stirring sound, a loud bang suddenly came from the sea of blood. The surface of the sea seemed to have been cut in half by a giant sword, and then a terrifying aura that surpassed that of an 8-star immortal emperor overflowed, crossing the past, present, and future. It's time to investigate the background of those supernatural forces. A seemingly thin figure came to the surface from the depths of the sea. A pair of cold eyes looked at the sky, and the river of time directly collapsed. Then, he took a step forward and appeared above the All-Heavens shop. In just a few breaths, in addition to Xiao Yan, Sun Wukong, and the floating immortal emperor, several more figures appeared above the All-Heavens shop. These figures' auras were extremely powerful, and they gave off a terrifying pressure. Even the weakest among them had a cultivation base of peak 8-star immortal emperor. That's Xian Yuan immortal emperor, ranked second only to Yuandi on the immortal emperor rankings. There's also the third-ranked Gui Yuan immortal emperor, the fourth-ranked Xian Tian immortal emperor, and the fifth-ranked Purple Cloud immortal emperor. They've all come out of closed-door cultivation. They're all here. This is the first time they've appeared together in tens of thousands of years. The last time they came out together was during the Immortal Emperor Rankings War. The spectating experts were dumbfounded when they recognized the figures that appeared above the All-Heavens shop. Their faces were filled with disbelief. In the world battlefield, the mysterious 9 stars Immortal Emperor also sensed the arrival of the Xian Yuan Immortal Emperor, Gui Yuan Immortal Emperor, and the others. He frowned and looked at Yuan Di. You're making a great enemy of the Origin Sky Pavilion. Don't let the Origin Sky Pavilion fall into eternal damnation because of a small All-Heavens shop, the mysterious 9 stars Immortal Emperor said coldly as he looked at Yuan Di. Yuan Di narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, If I'm not wrong, you're representing the Tianluo clan, right? It seems that you do know a lot. A hint of surprise flashed across the 9 stars Immortal Emperor's eyes. The Tianluo clan? Was this the mysterious transcendent power? But why does this clan sound so familiar? It's the ancient clan that controls reincarnation. But didn't this race disappear long ago in the long river of time? It's said that they can be traced back to the era when the great heavens regions were first formed. They didn't die in that catastrophe? Don't tell me those extraordinary forces are backed by ancient clans that survived that catastrophe? Even the Xian Yuan Immortal Emperors and the other Immortal Emperors were shocked when they heard Yuan Di mention the mysterious force. The Tianluo clan! The primordial dragon phoenix's pupils suddenly shrank. Upon seeing the primordial dragon phoenix's expression, Xiao Yan, Sun Wukong, and the others immediately asked, Old Dragon Phoenix, do you know something about this clan? The primordial dragon phoenix nodded. There's indeed such a clan in my inherited memories. Even among the ancient clans, the Tianluo clan is a terrifying clan with an extraordinary status. This is because they control reincarnation. Control reincarnation? Xiao Yan Yifan and the others looked at each other with confusion in their eyes before they looked at the primordial dragon phoenix in unison. For all living things, the end of life is death. If the soul of the dead doesn't dissipate, they will enter reincarnation. The ones who control reincarnation are the Tianluo clan. The primordial dragon phoenix glanced at the 9 stars Immortal Emperor in the world battlefield and said, Simply put, when an ordinary living thing dies, they will enter the reincarnation passage, and the ones who control this passage are the Tianluo clan. They can decide whether a dead person will enter reincarnation or truly die. Chapter 738. The primordial dragon phoenix took a deep breath. Because the Tianluo clan controlled the reincarnation cycle, many factions were willing to offend them in the primordial era. This was because anyone who died a natural death could still return to their peak after entering the cycle of reincarnation. However, If they were killed by the Tianluo clan on the reincarnation path, they would never be able to make a comeback. There's such a clan? Xiao Yan, Yi Fan, and the others' expressions turned even graver after hearing the primordial dragon phoenix's explanation. Looking at the world battlefield above, the atmosphere became even more tense. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's fight. Yuan Di glanced at the 9-star celestial emperor from the Luotian clan and waved his right hand. Golden Genesis Heaven power surged out of his body and a majestic Genesis Heaven aura erupted. Brother Yuan, you're really bold. You know we're from the Tianluo clan, but you still dare to interfere. At this moment, another powerful voice filled with supreme might rang out in the world battlefield. Then, a fifth figure appeared. It was a silver-haired man in black. Judging from his aura, he was also a 9-star celestial emperor. Another 9-star celestial emperor! Yuan Di is under a lot of pressure now. As expected of a tribe that survived that calamity. Their foundation is really terrifying. Celestial Emperor Xian Yuan, Celestial Emperor Gui Yuan, and the other top-ranked experts on the Celestial Emperor ranking narrowed their eyes when they sensed the black-clothed man's aura. Your Majesty! Celestial Emperor Lan Hui had also determined the black-clothed man's cultivation level. He stepped forward and appeared beside Yuan Di with a grave expression. Although Yuan Di was ranked first on the Celestial Emperor ranking board, this was only in comparison to the factions in the All Heavens regions. Some extraordinary factions that were hidden in the depths of the All Heavens regions were not included. Although Yuan Di was powerful, the two top experts from the Tianluo clan were both 9-star celestial emperors. Either one of them had the strength to fight against Yuan Di. Fellow Taoist Yuan, are you able to clearly see the situation now? The black-clothed man snorted, clearly dissatisfied with Yuan Di. His body shook slightly, and Golden Genesis Heaven power surged toward Yuan Di. Let's talk after the battle, Yuan Di said coldly. His expression did not change at all in the face of two 9-star celestial emperors. With a wave of his sleeve, the Genesis Heaven power around him met the incoming Genesis Heaven power. Rumble! With a loud boom, the two terrifying waves of Golden Genesis Heaven power collided, and both disappeared without a trace. You're not a wise pavilion master to sacrifice the entire Yuantian pavilion for a mere all-heavens shop. The black-clothed man's voice grew deeper and deeper. You've succeeded in wearing down my patience. My original plan was to imprison these little fellows from the all-heavens shop, but now it seems that there's no need for them to exist. As soon as he finished speaking, the man in black attacked Yuan Di. Almost at the same time, the 9-star Immortal Emperor also launched a supreme attack at Yuan Di. Destroy the all-heavens shop? You guys sure have a big tone. However, any person or force that had such thoughts has already become a thing of the past. And you guys won't be an exception. However, just as the attacks from the two 9-star celestial emperors from the Tianluo clan were about to hit Yuan Di, a terrifying energy storm swept out and instantly annihilated the attacks from the two 9-star celestial emperors from the Tianluo clan. While everyone was puzzled, the River of Time traversed the world battlefield like a soaring divine dragon between the two Tianluo immortal emperors and Yuan Di. Splash! The River of Time surged violently as a figure walked over from the other side of the river. It was a young man in a purple robe. The moment he walked over, the world battlefield seemed to churn, and the energy ripples in the void turned into golden tornadoes that soared into the sky. When the young man stood at the end of the river, he first looked at the all-heavens shop below. Then, his cold gaze swept across the crowd of spectating experts before finally landing on the two 9-stars immortal emperors of the Tianluo clan. The all-heavens shop's sect master. It's really him. He's not dead. He's still alive. How is this possible? Didn't they say he died in the explosion in Sky Market? Many immortal emperors in Sky Market saw it with their own eyes. Why do I feel that the pressure he gave me just now is even greater than the pressure from Yuan Di and the two 9-stars immortal emperors of the Tianluo clan? I have the same feeling too. When I met his gaze, I felt all my immortal power was sealed and I couldn't use it at all. The spectating experts were stunned when they recognized Chu Bei. Then, they subconsciously exclaimed in surprise. As for Immortal Emperor Xian Yuan, Immortal Emperor Gui Yuan, and the other super-existences at the top of the Immortal Emperor ranking, they couldn't help but tremble when they recalled the moment they met Yuan Di's gaze. They looked at each other with surprise and suspicion in their eyes. At that moment, they felt a power above their Genesis Heaven power seeping into their bodies from the All Heavens Shop sect master's gaze and suppressing their Genesis Heaven power. This was something they didn't dare to imagine. Although they weren't as strong as Yuan Di, they weren't far off. They were also 9 stars immortal emperors. I knew Master wouldn't die. Even though there hasn't been any news of Master for 1,000,000 years, I'm still very confident. With Master's return, the All Heavens Shop's crisis will be resolved. Xiao Yan, Yi Fan, Sun Ryukang, and the others stared blankly at the familiar figure on the river of time. Their eyes suddenly turned red. They weren't the only ones. The millions of disciples in the All Heavens Shop all burst into tears of joy when they saw the figure on the river of time. They couldn't help but sob. This was their belief and the foundation of the All Heavens Shop. 1,000,000 years ago, Yuan Di had single-handedly made the All Heavens Shop the strongest faction in high heavens. But not long after, it was rumored that Yuan Di had died in the sky market explosion. Without Chu Bei, the All Heavens Shop instantly became Loki. It fell silent in the river of time and gradually disappeared from the sight of countless experts in high heavens. Even so, the All Heavens Shop still faced a crisis. Ever since the sky market explosion, an extraordinary faction had set their eyes on the All Heavens Shop and even sent a 9 stars immortal emperor to force the floating island to suppress the All Heavens Shop. Today, the 9-star celestial emperor had personally come to the All Heavens Trading Company and declared that he would destroy it. If not for the Genesis Heaven Pavilion's help, the All Heavens Shop would likely have ceased to exist. Chapter 739. You're not dead! You're really not dead! That's great! Tell us! Where's the Origin Tool Manual? Hand it over! The 2 Tianluo celestial emperors stared at Chu Bei. They were stunned for a moment, but when they came to their senses, their faces lit up with joy. Their excitement was even greater than the joy of the people in the All Heavens Shop. Previously you had the advantage in numbers. Now that fellow Taoist Wu has returned, do you think you still have the upper hand with him and me? Yuan Di snorted coldly at the 2 9-star celestial emperors. Thank you for your help. Chu Bei tilted his head and cupped his fists at Yuan Di. Then, he pointed at the 2 9-star celestial emperors and said, Fellow Taoist Yuan, you can just watch from the sidelines. Leave them to me. Chu Bei's calm voice penetrated the battlefield and resounded throughout the entire great domain of chaos. What does the All Heavens Shop leader mean? Does he want to deal with the 2 9-star celestial emperors alone? The 9-star stage is the limit of the celestial emperor stage. No matter how strong the All Heavens Shop leader is, he's only at this stage. Isn't he underestimating the 2 celestial emperors? Don't worry. Yuan Di has already made his move. If the All Heavens Shop leader fails, he'll definitely step in immediately. That's true. Yuan Di has already offended the Origin Sky Pavilion for the All Heavens Shop. Now they're on the same side. Hearing Chu Bei's words, countless experts, including all the immortal emperors, were shocked. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Fellow Taoists, those 2 aren't. Yuan Di looked at Chu Bei. But before he could finish his words, Chu Bei waved his hand and interrupted him. Yuan Di did not say anything else, but his aura did not weaken at all. He was still in a battle-ready state. He's really arrogant. I didn't expect the Tianluo clan to be underestimated. The 2 9-star celestial emperors exchanged a look and stepped forward at the same time. Their bodies were surrounded by golden Genesis Heaven power. Rumble! Accompanied by an earth-shaking boom, a new world battlefield instantly replaced the original world battlefield. Unlike the previous battlefield, this new one was filled with dazzling golden law runes, each of which contained boundless Genesis heaven aura. Two terrifying celestial emperor powers shot out from the two 9-stars celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan and engulfed the entire battlefield. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's face darkened when he sensed the Genesis heaven's might, and he immediately left the battlefield. It was the same for the 8-star Immortal Emperor from Tian Luo clan. Even though they were extremely powerful, they could still feel a suffocating pressure in the battlefield. After the New World battlefield was formed, the two celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan didn't say anything. With a boom, their hands shone with dazzling divine light. In the next instant, the space around them that contained Genesis heaven power rippled as two golden rivers of Genesis heaven power surged beneath their feet. Chi! Strange weapons appeared in the hands of the two celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan at the same time. Their appearances were extremely strange, but they were wrapped in heart-palpitating golden Genesis heaven power. What a terrifying aura! All the celestial emperors of the great chaos domains focused their attention on the emperor weapons in the hands of the two celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan. With the support of golden Genesis heaven power, their power was far beyond that of ordinary Tao affirmation emperor weapons. Yuandi's eyes were deep as he waved his right hand. Dazzling emperor light wrapped around him, removing the pressure from the two celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan. As for Chu Bei, who was also on the battlefield, he didn't move. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his face was expressionless as he faced the two surging emperor weapons. Buzz! With a loud boom, the battlefield trembled. The two 9-star celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan attacked Chu Bei with their emperor weapons from different directions. In an instant, a golden energy storm filled with Genesis heaven power swept across the battlefield. It was incomparably terrifying. Within the storm, the two celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan appeared in front of Chu Bei, their emperor weapons containing supreme divine power. Yuan Di frowned. He flipped his right hand, and a 7-inch dagger appeared in his palm. A golden river circled around it, and he was ready to attack at any time. The spectating experts below held their breaths. Although the battle above wasn't magnificent, they knew that this was a terrifying battle that represented the pinnacle of cultivation. Even if they were strong, if they accidentally entered the battlefield, they would most likely be blasted into nothingness by the aftershocks. Celestial Emperor Xian Yuan, Celestial Emperor Ge Yuan, and the others were also 9 stars. They stared at the two celestial emperors with solemn expressions. Although the two 9-star celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan had attained different emperor das, they seemed to complement each other. The two emperor weapons intertwined and attacked at the same time. Their divine power wasn't as simple as 1 + 1, but multiplied several times. If they were the ones fighting in the battlefield, they didn't have the confidence to safely withstand such a joint attack. However, under their watchful gazes, just as the two 9-star celestial emperors' emperor weapons were about to land on Chu Bei with golden Genesis heaven power, Chu Bei's body suddenly turned transparent. The next moment, a ripple spread out in all directions with his body as the center, forming a huge square space. The square space enveloped the two 9-star celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan. In an instant, with a loud boom, the golden Genesis heaven power around the two 9-star celestial emperors crumbled like a thin layer of ice being shattered by a punch, turning into countless fragments. Not only were the countless spectating experts below stunned, but even Yuan Di, who was also on the battlefield, and his pupils shrank abruptly. But before they could react, the originally transparent square space formed with Chu Bei at the center was suddenly filled with golden liquid. It was also at this moment that the two 9-star celestial emperors' emperor weapons left their hands and collided uncontrollably. Kacha! With a crisp sound, the two emperor weapons broke into two halves at the same time, either due to the pressure of the golden liquid in the square space or due to the energy impact. The two 9-star celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan turned pale and spat out bright blood. But before their emperor blood could release its terrifying power, it was purified by the golden liquid in the square space. At this moment, there were only 3 people in the huge and strange space, Chu Bei and the two celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan. But in this strange space, Chu Bei was like the ruler, and no matter how strong the two celestial emperors were, they were still at Chu Bei's mercy. No matter how the two 9 stars celestial emperors of the Tian Luo clan gathered the golden Genesis heaven power, it inexplicably melted into the square space as soon as it formed. Chapter 740. What's going on with that square space? It seems to have trapped the two heavenly net immortal emperors. How is that possible? That's two 9 stars immortal emperors. Why do I feel like the two heavenly net immortal emperors have lost control of their bodies? They don't seem to be able to resist at all. This is the all-heaven shop master's method. It's as strange and unpredictable as it was 1,000,000 years ago. Does that mean the all-heaven shop master won this battle? Heavens! That's crazy! The all-heaven shop master suppressed the two 9 stars immortal emperors of the heavenly net immortal emperors by himself. Moreover, the battle was extremely simple and didn't seem fancy at all. Countless experts came back to their senses and subconsciously gulped. They couldn't help but let out a long sigh. How did he do it? That space made my heart palpitate. Xian Yuan, Gui Yuan, Heng Su, and the other 9 stars immortal emperors on the immortal emperor ranking looked at each other before they turned to look at the two 9 stars immortal emperors of the heavenly net immortal emperor ranking. Their faces were filled with disbelief. In their opinion, the 9 stars immortal emperors were already at the end of the cultivation path. Battles between existences of this level should be eternal. Perhaps there would be victories and defeats, but there shouldn't be any so-called easy victories, let alone casualties. However, the scene that they had just witnessed had shattered their understanding of the world for hundreds of millions of years. They didn't dare to imagine that the two 9 stars immortal emperors would be suppressed in an instant. They didn't even have the ability to fight back. Unable to suppress their curiosity, Xian Yuan, Gui Yuan, Heng Su, and the other 9 stars immortal emperors exchanged glances. After communicating with their eyes, they appeared beside Yuan Di at the same time. When they entered the world battlefield and sensed the huge space around Chu Bei's body, their expressions froze just like Yuan Di's. The liquid aura flowing in the spacious space was all golden Genesis heaven power. To be more precise, the aura was far superior to the golden Genesis heaven power they had created. Impossible! If it's calculated in droplets, how much would it be? Xian Yuan, Gui Yuan, and the other 9 stars immortal emperors were all numb. After reaching the 9 star stage, their Genesis heaven power had undergone a qualitative change and reached 200 drops. Who would have thought that the domain Chu Bei had created would be filled with Genesis heaven power, a power that was even stronger than golden Genesis heaven power? No wonder the two from the Tian Luo clan lost their combat power instantly. If we were in such a space, we would definitely have the same ending. In an instant, Xian Yuan, Gui Yuan, and the other immortal emperors came to a realization. The way they looked at Chu Bei was like how ordinary people would look at a monster. S-origin sky space! You are not in the realm of 9 stars! You've broken through! The auras of the two celestial emperors from the Tianluo clan were chaotic. They ignored their injuries and stared at Chu Bei with fear and unease in their eyes. In addition, there was also a hint of regret. Within the Genesis heaven space, Chu Bei glanced at the two celestial emperors from the Tianluo clan but did not respond. He looked at the other celestial emperors from the Tianluo clan below, and reached out with his right hand, instantly capturing all of them. In the next moment, Chu Bei's eyes narrowed. The vast Genesis heaven space suddenly shrank to the limit until it turned into a palm-sized square crystal and disappeared into his palm. During this process, one could clearly hear the miserable cries of the celestial emperors from the Tianluo clan. When, not long after, the world battlefield collapsed, Chu Bei stepped forward and appeared above the All-Heavens shop. Disciple greets Master! Xiao Yan Yi Fan, Sun Wukong, Shi Hao, Chen Nan, Tang San, and the others immediately stepped forward and knelt in the air. Their voices were emotional, and their eyes were red. You all have done well. its master who has been a little incompetent. Looking at the group of personal disciples kneeling before him, Chu Bei's mind was filled with thousands of thoughts. Scenes of when he had taken them in as disciples appeared in his mind. The world had changed, and time had passed. Even Linley, Luo Feng, and Jun Moxie had all stepped into the celestial emperor realm. Master, we always believed that you were still alive. Just as we thought, you have returned. Although Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others had already become celestial emperors, before the All-Heaven's shop, they did not have their usual celestial emperor's might. Instead, they were more like children. Chu Bei smiled with gratification. Then, he looked at the two men and a woman in green clothes not far away. Disciple Bu Xian greets Master. Disciple Long Lin greets Master. Disciple Bing Tong Tong greets Master. Sensing Chu Bei's gaze, the three figures immediately trembled and hurriedly spoke. Today, in front of all the great beings of the All-Heavens domain, I will officially announce that the three of you will be my personal disciples. Chu Bei's voice was calm, but it clearly lingered in the ears of all the great beings. As for my inheritance, each of you will have one. With that, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and 3 world fruits and 3 golden bowls flew to Bu Xian, Long Lin, and Bing Tong Tong. Bu Xian, I will give you the Earth God Pill. Long Lin, I will give you the Wood God Pill. Tong Tong, I will give you the Flower God Pill. The 3 smiling voices floated in every corner of the All-Heavens domain. Chu Bei's voice echoed in their ears. Staring at the world pills floating in front of them, Bu Xian, Long Lin, and Bing Tong Tong were stunned at first. When they regained their senses, they looked at each other and trembled slightly. Thank you, Master! Bu Xian, Long Lin, and Bing Tong Tong cowed out heavily. 3 trembling voices sounded at the same time. Ever since they were accepted as disciples by Chu Bei, they existed as nominal disciples. Although they were all disciples, in their hearts, they still could not truly regard themselves as Chu Bei's disciples. This was because in their opinion, Chu Bei's disciples had their own unique inheritance. Among Chu Bei's disciples, their senior brothers, any one of them had already entered the immortal emperor realm. Only the 3 of them had not even entered the immortal king realm. They even felt that they had reached a bottleneck, and the immortal king realm was their final destination. It was impossible to enter the quasi-immortal emperor realm, let alone the immortal emperor realm. This was also the reason why they did not kowtow with Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others after Chu Bei's victory. This was because in their hearts, although they were also Chu Bei's disciples, they were far from being mentioned in the same breath as Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others. However, what they did not expect was that just now, in front of all the great beings in the All-Heavens domain, their master had personally announced that he would accept them as his personal disciples and would give them the inheritance pill. Chapter 741. Thank you, Master! Bu Xian, Long Lin, and Bing Tong Tong were extremely excited. After bowing deeply to Chu Bei again, they received the golden bowl in front of them and dripped a drop of blood into it. Although Chu Bei did not explain, they had heard about the inheritance ceremony from Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others and knew what to do. After dripping a drop of blood into the golden bowl, the 3 of them swallowed the Emperor Dao Divine pills in front of them at the same time. The moment the Emperor Dao Divine pills entered their bodies, Bu Xian, Long Lin, and Bing Tong Tong's auras suddenly rose. The bottleneck that had been dormant for a long time was broken and they entered the quasi-immortal emperor realm. Is this the inheritance ceremony of the All-Heavens shop, Master? Seeing it with my own eyes is better than hearing about it 100 times. It's so magical! The eyes of the cultivators who witnessed this scene were filled with astonishment. Chu Bei nodded in satisfaction when he sensed the changes in Bu Xian and the others' auras. These 3 Emperor Dao Supreme pills were given to him by the system after he communicated with it. As his strength increased, Chu Bei gradually gained the right to negotiate with the system. Owner of the All-Heaven shop, are those guys from the Tianluo clan dead? At this moment, Immortal Emperor Xian Yuan, Immortal Emperor Gui Yuan, and immortal Emperor Heng Su recovered from their shock and instantly appeared in front of Chu Bei to ask. Chu Bei glanced at the three of them indifferently. His gaze swept past them without any response. The three of them were the other 9 stars immortal emperors on the Immortal Emperor ranking board. However, when the All Heavens shop was in danger, the three of them had only been spectators and had no intention of helping. Noticing Chu Bei's indifference, Immortal Emperor Xian Yuan and the others obviously realized something and did not ask any further. "What's the realm above the 9 stars? Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan also came to Chu Bei's side with a puzzled look on his face. As soon as Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan finished speaking, the noisy All Heavens shop in the Emperor district instantly fell silent. Immortal Emperor Xian Yuan, Immortal Emperor Ge Yuan, and Immortal Emperor Heng Su were not the only 9 stars immortal emperors. All the other immortal emperors and experts below the Immortal Emperor level focused their attention on Chu Bei. They all held their breaths as they waited for him to continue speaking. Even the primordial dragon Phoenix, who had inherited memories, widened his eyes. There was no record of what was above the 9 stars realm in his memory. Of the 9 stars, in the minds of all cultivators, the 9th star realm was already the peak of the path of cultivation, and they never imagined that there was actually an even higher realm above it. Chu Bei looked at Origin Emperor and pondered for a moment before saying, "To be precise, the Immortal Emperor realm isn't the limit as you all think. Of the immortal realm, the of the immortal, 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 of the immortal. After the first Immortal Emperor realm, there is the second Immortal Emperor realm, and above that is the third Immortal Emperor realm." "What is the space that you used to suppress the Tianluo clan?" Immortal Emperor asked. "The Genesis Heaven power you used is a power that can be controlled by the first Immortal Emperor realm and the fourth Immortal Emperor realm. Although the 9 stars realm has been upgraded, it is still in the form of a droplet. Once you reach the second Immortal Emperor realm, you can control the Genesis Heaven space. In the Genesis Heaven space, all Genesis Heaven power will submit. When you break through, you will know when you come into contact with this power." "What about the third Immortal Emperor realm?" Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan couldn't help but be curious. "The Genesis Heaven world," Chu Bei replied again. Just as Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan was about to ask more, Chu Bei waved his hand, indicating for him to stop asking. It wasn't that Chu Bei was stingy, but that was all he knew. "Thank you for telling me, Senior Chu." Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan nodded slightly. In fact, he still had many questions. For example, where were the second Immortal Emperor realm immortal emperors? What was the use of the origin tool list? Where were the extraordinary forces hidden? And a series of other questions. However, seeing that Chu Bei had no intention of saying more, Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan could only stop asking. "The second Immortal Emperor realm, the Genesis Heaven space? I've really gained something today." Upon hearing Chu Bei's words, Immortal Emperor Xian Yuan, Immortal Emperor Ge Yuan, and the other immortal emperors muttered to themselves. "The show is over. Let's disperse and return peace to the All Heavens shop." Chu Bei's gaze swept across the surroundings. His emperor's aura filled every corner of Emperor District, and his voice was filled with supreme majesty. Immortal Emperor Yuan Yuan, Immortal Emperor Xian Yuan, and the other supreme experts looked at each other, and their figures faded until they completely disappeared. Almost at the same time, the tens of thousands of powerful divine consciousness shrouding the All Heavens shop withdrew. In a short while, there were no more experts in the huge All Heavens shop in Emperor District. Although the experts in the outside world had retreated, the All Heavens shop and the entire Emperor District were still immersed in a wild atmosphere of joy and celebration. While celebrating the victory of this battle, they were also celebrating Chu Bei's return. "Master, the source of the Sky Market explosion, which is the so-called origin weapon catalog, is it? How could it alarm those extraordinary forces? Apart from the Tianluo clan, other extraordinary forces also sent people to confirm your news, but they weren't as persistent as the former." Yi Fan looked respectfully at Chu Bei, his face filled with confusion. When the time is right, I'll tell you. Chu Bei's voice was calm. Master, are you going to leave again this time? Xiao Yan looked at Chu Bei and asked. Activating the All Heavens City for the host. The host is going to undergo one last training. Just as Chu Bei was about to tell Xiao Yan and the other disciples that he would not leave, the system's voice rang in his mind. Chu Bei was slightly taken aback. He did not expect that he would enter the All Heavens City again after entering the Immortal Emperor realm. After a long while, the space-time wheel appeared, and Chu Bei stepped into it. However, what surprised Chu Bei was that the All Heavens City was no longer chaotic this time. When he stepped into the All Heavens City, his Immortal Emperor power quickly dissipated. 3 months later. All Heavens City, Purple Cloud Sect. Uncle Master, I've washed your clothes for you. On the mountainside, a young girl in a purple dress ran elegantly into a unique courtyard. As she ran, the girl's curved eyebrows and long eyelashes trembled slightly. Her fair and flawless skin had a faint pink hue, and her thin lips were as delicate as rose petals. Her beautiful face exuded a gentle and elegant temperament. Schwer, I haven't seen you for a day, and you've become even more beautiful. In the courtyard, there was a handsome young man with a smile on his face. Uncle Master, you're teasing me again. The girl in the purple dress glared at the young man. The handsome young man took the clothes from the girl, and the smile on his face suddenly disappeared. His expression became serious. Schwer, do you like the Uncle Master from 3 months ago? Or do you like the current Uncle Master? Huh! The girl seemed to be stunned by the sudden question. After pondering for a long while, the girl muttered innocently. The previous Uncle Master didn't talk much and only knew how to cultivate every day. He ignored Schwer when I talked to you. The current Uncle Master is very close. He sleeps, eats, and daydreams every day. In Master's words, he's idling around. Well, if I really have to say, I certainly like the current Uncle Master. Hearing the girl's answer, the young man twitched the corner of his mouth. Idling around. Although this word was appropriate, he did not want to be like that. Chapter 742. That's right. The young man was Chu Bei. To be exact, the soul was Chu Bei. That wasn't quite right either, because the original owner of this body was also called Chu Bei. He didn't expect that this last trial would not only dissipate his cultivation, but also allow his soul to transmigrate into the body of a dead person. He had been training for 3 whole months. To be more precise, he had no direction and had been idling for 3 months. The father of the dead person he had replaced was the sect master of the Purple Cloud sect. 5 months ago, he was suddenly announced to have become obsessed with cultivation and died. The entire sect was immersed in grief, except for the original owner of this body. This was because he knew that his father didn't die because he became obsessed, but was killed by the first elder, the third elder, the sixth elder, and the seventh elder. What Chu Bei admired was the shrewdness of the original owner of this body. It was not an ordinary forbearance. On the surface, when facing the first elder and the other enemies who killed his father, he was respectful and courteous as usual. But in secret, he turned this killing intent into motivation and cultivated crazily day and night. The sad thing was, before he could grow, his enemy had taken the initiative to make a move. The black bone poison sealed all his meridians and acupoints in one night, turning him into a complete cripple. Later, the pitiful original owner was sent to this unique courtyard. As for the obedient girl in the purple dress in front of him, her name was Mu Schwer, 17 years old. Although she was only 3 years younger than the original owner of this body, her seniority was lower. After all, the original owner's senior brother was her master. The Xianhuang continent was millions of miles long and wide, so big that the original owner of this body didn't even have the definition of area. He only knew that the Purple Cloud sect was located in a corner of the western continent. The humans here used their meridians and acupoints to absorb true martial qi to cultivate, but the original owner of this body was ravaged by the black bone poison. His meridians and acupoints were blocked, and his true martial qi dissipated. He couldn't start again even if he wanted to. The host comprehended the source heaven-space with the body of a mortal. It's finally here! Hearing the long-awaited system's voice, Chu Bei's body trembled. The source heaven-space was a supreme technique that only martial emperors could master. He had once used the system to experience it. Just as Chu Bei was deep in thought, the scenery around him changed, and he arrived in a world with surging rivers. To be more precise, these rivers were formed from Genesis heaven energy, and Emperor Dao aura was everywhere. Chu Bei allowed his body to float above the river, feeling the flow of Genesis heaven power. Several days later, in a house with an exquisite courtyard, a crack appeared in the void. Chu Bei walked out of the mysterious domain with a dark green medicine bag in his hand. It was something he had created by absorbing a small amount of Genesis heaven power. Crack! At this moment, a clear sound rang out, and a young girl in a purple dress pushed open the door and walked into the room. Martial uncle, you didn't die! Seeing Chu Bei, the purple-dressed girl was startled at first, but when she reacted, she immediately put down the clothes in her hand and hugged Chu Bei's arm. Her beautiful face was filled with joy and happiness. What are you talking about? Your martial uncle is someone who wants immortality. Looking at the girl in front of him whom he had spent 3 months with, Chu Bei smiled knowingly, and couldn't help but reach out and give her a knock on the head. Martial uncle, where have you been these 7 days? They all said you fell off a cliff and didn't even have a corpse left. Mu Shuer rubbed her little head and cast a displeased glance at Chu Bei. These days, martial uncle went out to gather herbs. Chu Bei rolled his eyes, putting his hands on Mu Shuer's shoulders, and said with a serious face, with this, martial uncle can cultivate again. Speaking of this, Chu Bei pointed to the medicine bag in his palm, and then pointed outside the room. Go boil some water for martial uncle, he'll take a medicinal bath later. Oh! Mu Shuer didn't ask any more questions, and obediently trotted out. In the room, Chu Bei sat cross-legged in a large wooden tub filled with hot water, his handsome face faintly discernible in the steam. Shuer, you can pour the medicine bag into the tub now. Chu Bei's voice sounded, and Mu Shuer hurriedly carried the medicine bag to the tub. Seeing Chu Bei's half-exposed body at such a close distance, Mu Shuer's cheeks flushed even redder. She shyly lowered her eyes, and her slender white fingers picked up the herbs and threw them into the tub. Martial uncle, can't you put in the herbs yourself? Mu Shuer's cheeks were red, and she was very shy. When the herbs entered the tub, the water in the tub was instantly dyed emerald green. At this moment, Chu Bei's entire body was flush red from the hot water. At this moment, Chu Bei felt all the pores on his body open, and wisps of emerald green liquid immediately entered his body through his pores like a living creature. The meridians and acupoints that were originally blocked were being constantly attacked by a gentle force, and the cycle repeated itself. As time passed, the color of the hot water in the tub gradually faded. This was because the source heaven force had begun to seep into Chu Bei's cells, meridians, and acupoints bit by bit. Gradually, Chu Bei could clearly feel his muscles slowly expanding, and his loose bones constantly hardening. Crackling sounds began to come from Chu Bei's limbs and bones. He could clearly feel that most of his blocked meridians and acupoints had been cleared. After about half an hour, the remaining source heaven force in the water was absorbed into his body, and the water that was previously dyed emerald green also became clear again. Chu Bei slowly opened his eyes, and turned to look at Mu Shuer, who was looking down, blushing, and extremely shy. He smiled and said, Shuer, thank you. Seeing that Chu Bei had finished his medicinal bath, Mu Shuer responded softly, and quickly trotted out of Chu Bei's room. That shy little expression, it's amazing! Looking at Mu Shuer's back, Chu Bei couldn't help but reveal a smile. Now, his life seemed to have been reborn. After comfortably stretching his waist, Chu Bei closed his eyes and rested. In this small plane, the cultivation system above ordinary people was the Qi tempering realm, level 1 to level 9, which was a body refining realm. Above that was the mortal evolution realm, level 1 to level 9, which was the initial stage of true martial chi release. Above that was the martial contact realm, which was further divided into 3 realms. Martial spirits, level 1 to 9 stars, could condense spirit armor. Martial generals, level 1 to 9 stars, could condense cyclones in their bodies and could temporarily stay in the air. Martial kings, level 1 to 9 stars, were extremely skilled in using true martial chi and could fly. The previous sect master of the Purple Cloud sect, who was also the father of the original Chu Bei, was a 9 stars martial king, the strongest person in the Purple Cloud sect. After changing his clothes, Chu Bei walked out of his room and recalled the source heaven force he felt in the mysterious space. But at this moment, a commotion suddenly came from outside the courtyard, and Mu Shuer's pitiful cries. Chu Bei's expression changed, and he quickly walked out of the courtyard. When he saw Mu Shuer's petite body being pulled by 3 16 or 17-year-old boys, his eyes instantly spat fire. Chapter 743. Do you want to die? In a flash, Chu Bei came to Mu Shuer's side and pulled her behind him. He stared coldly at the 3 youths in front of him. Martial uncle, they are Liao's men. They insisted on taking me to Liao's place. I didn't want to, so they forced me. Seeing Chu Bei's arrival, Mu Shuer held back her sobs and hugged Chu Bei tightly. Her expression was like a frightened kitten. Liao? That little guy has become so arrogant. Chu Bei's face was gloomy and his words were cold. Since the death of the original Chu Bei's father, the temporary helmsman of the Purple Cloud sect was Great Elder Li Xian. And this Liao was Li Xian's precious son. Young martial uncle, aren't you dead? The 3 youths looked at Chu Bei in astonishment. They had received news that their young martial uncle had fallen off the cliff and nothing was left of him. What? Still not getting lost? Chu Bei snorted coldly. Hearing this, the 3 youths looked at each other. After a moment of hesitation, they seemed to have come to a decision. Young martial uncle, senior brother Li fell in love with junior sister Shuai at first sight. He invited her several times, but junior sister Shuai refused. Today, senior brother Li told us to bring junior sister Shuai to him no matter what. One of the youths stepped forward. It won't be long before Great Elder becomes the new sect leader. Senior brother Li will also become the young sect leader. Not to mention, senior brother Li is talented and intelligent. It is junior sister Shuai's fortune to be chosen by senior brother Li. Chu Bei stared at the 3 youths and sneered. Do you think Great Elder can become the sect leader? Liao can become the young sect leader? Young martial uncle, the position of young sect leader should be yours. But now that your cultivation is gone, this position is no longer suitable for you. One of the youths scratched his head and said no more. He stretched out his hand to grab Mu Shuer. Chu Bei smiled and reached out a hand to grab the youth's outstretched hand. No matter how hard the youth tried, he couldn't move an inch. Ouch, ouch! The young man cried out. His face was red, but no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free. Let go of senior brother Wang! Without hesitation, the 2 youths clenched their fists and punched towards Chu Bei. Chu Bei's expression was cold, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he clenched his fist, and before the youth could cry out, a fist landed on his chest. The leader of the group let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the ground on his butt. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. When the other 2 youths saw that their companion was bleeding, a trace of fear appeared on their faces. However, how could they withdraw their fists so easily? Looking at the other 2 people coming towards him, Chu Bei's fists were wrapped in a layer of true martial chi and punched out. Crack! With a crisp sound, the 2 youths' fingers were fractured. If you don't scram, there will be 3 corpses lying on the ground. Chu Bei disdainfully glanced at the 3 lackeys and snorted coldly. Your cultivation! The 3 injured youths stared at Chu Bei. Just as they were about to ask something, They saw Chu Bei slowly walking towards them with a terrifying smile on his face. Without a second thought, they turned around and fled. Seeing the three fleeing figures, Chu Bei narrowed his eyes. After being cleansed by the Genesis Heaven Force, he had managed to regain some strength. "Uncle Master, didn't you lose your cultivation? How did you beat them up?" Mu Shui's eyes widened as she stared at Chu Bei in disbelief. The three people who were beaten up just now were all at the 7th layer of Qi tempering. "Shui, under the medicinal bath just now, I've already recovered." Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Mu Shui. "You also contributed to this." Mu Shui's face turned red. "Uncle Master, are those medicinal herbs really that useful? Can it let Shui feel the existence of true martial qi?" Chu Bei smiled in embarrassment. "This medicinal herb is only effective for Uncle Master." "Oh." Mu Shui pouted and raised her fist in anger. "Shui also wants to cultivate. Only when I'm strong will they not dare to harass me." Chu Bei did not reply. The first condition for people in the Xianhuang continent to embark on the path of martial cultivation was to be able to sense the true martial qi between heaven and earth. The probability was that 1 in 10 people would be able to sense it. Those with poor talent would be able to sense it at the age of 14. Those with average talent would be able to sense it at the age of 10. Those with good talent would be able to sense it at the age of 6. There were even some monsters who could sense it at the age of 2 or 3 when they just learned how to walk. Chu Bei was one of those with good talent. When he sensed true martial qi at the age of 5.5, his martial cultivation talent was quite terrifying. Before his meridians were destroyed, his cultivation level had already reached the 7th layer of Exuvia, which was 4 layers higher than Chu Bei's current cultivation level. Thinking about Chu Bei's previous performance, Mu Shui blinked and probed. "Uncle Master, did you return to the mortal evolution state?" Chu Bei nodded. "3rd layer of Exuvia. I knew Uncle Master would definitely become that prodigy that everyone was jealous of." Mu Shui grabbed Chu Bei's arm and shook it happily. However, this happiness only lasted for a few seconds before it was replaced by a worried expression. "Uncle Master, you attacked those 3 guys, and they are Liao's people. With Liao's temperament, he will definitely come and find trouble with you." Mu Shui looked at Chu Bei worriedly. Although little Uncle Master was 1 generation higher than them, when the old sect leader was still here, Liao would still be respectful to little Uncle Master on the surface. But now, the other party would definitely not put little Uncle Master in his eyes. "Shui, you're still worried about Uncle Master? Not to mention Liao, even if his father came, Uncle Master wouldn't be afraid." Chu Bei stroked Mu Shui's hair and said gently, "If only Master was in the sect." Mu Shui bit her lips. In her opinion, Chu Bei's words were undoubtedly to not let her worry. "Your master might be on his way back." Chu Bei smiled faintly. Mu Shui's master was his senior brother, the 2nd elder of Purple Cloud sect. Since he left 3 months ago, there had been no news of him. "Dad, when are you going to become the sect leader?" In a large hall, a 16 or 17-year-old youth wearing a luxurious robe handed a cup of tea to a middle-aged man sitting on the main seat. "The time isn't right yet." Li Xian shook his head. "I know you like Mu Shui, but the time isn't right yet. You can't be too anxious. You need to wait. I've already asked Wang Hu to invite her over." Liao licked his lips, his eyes gleaming. "Don't mess around." Li Xian frowned slightly. Chapter 744. Ta ta ta. "Senior brother, junior sister Shui she. Great elder, 3rd elder, you're here too." Wang Hu and the other 2 ran in with hurried footsteps. When they saw that Li Xian was also there, they hurriedly bowed, their faces filled with respect. "If you have something to say, say it," Li Xian said coldly without waiting for Liao to speak. Wang Hu hesitated for a moment and said truthfully, "Senior brother, we went to invite junior sister Shui as you instructed. But just as junior sister Shui agreed to come, junior martial uncle stopped her and even hit us. Which little martial uncle? Li Xian was stunned at first, then asked in surprise. You mean Chu Bei? Seeing Wang Hu nod, Li Xian frowned. Didn't he fall off the cliff? And all of you are at Qi tempering stage 5, he's just a cripple. Senior brother, little martial uncle is not a cripple. His strength is far beyond ours. In my opinion, he should be at Qi tempering stage 8. Wang Hu said hurriedly. The two beside him also agreed. Impossible! Li Xian was shocked and said in a deep voice. His meridians are blocked, and he can't absorb true martial qi. He should be a cripple. Big brother, do you think this kid got some kind of opportunity? Third elder He Tian asked. No, I can't be at ease as long as this kid is alive. What's more, he has a cultivation base. Li Xian's face darkened. Father, I have a way to get rid of him. Liao gave Wang Hu and the other two a look and asked them to leave. The corner of his mouth raised into a sinister smile. There are still 3 days until the opening of the Purple Cloud Fantasy Realm. Now that Chu Bei has cultivated again, he will definitely sign up to participate. When the time comes, I can make a move on him in the Purple Cloud Mirage without anyone knowing. Third brother, what do you think of Aor's idea? Li Xian looked at He Tian. The reason why he couldn't make a move on Chu Bei in the sect was that the target was too eye-catching. Chu Bei's death would easily arouse suspicion. Secondly, he wasn't sure if the previous sect leader who was in seclusion to break through to the Saint Realm was really dead. That works. Wang Hu nodded in agreement. If Chu Bei dies inside, no one will be too suspicious. After all, death was a common occurrence in the Purple Cloud Illusory Realm. This is a good opportunity. Since your third elder has agreed, then you'd better handle this matter well. Li Xian sipped his tea, his eyes carrying a trace of malice. I promise that I won't let you down, Li Xian replied solemnly. When Chu Bei came out of the courtyard, the sky had already darkened. Little martial uncle, look at the top of the mountain. The Purple Cloud Illusory Realm has appeared. Mu Shuer suddenly screamed. Chu Bei looked up and saw a huge vortex above the mountain peak. From afar, it looked like a black hole. As time passed, the black vortex grew bigger and bigger until it formed a floating black area. Every sect or faction in the dark wilderness continent could not escape from the illusions. To be precise, it was because of the existence of the illusory realm that the faction or sect that controlled the illusory realm was born. There were a total of 5 colors in the illusory realm. Different colors of the illusory realm had different levels of opportunity and danger. The illusory realm controlled by the Purple Cloud sect was the lowest level of the 5, the Black Illusory Realm. The illusory realm would change, and it would appear once every year. Although the illusory realm differed from year to year, there was one thing in common: the illusion jade. Each illusion jade was the energy source that supported the illusory realm. It contained a huge amount of pure true martial qi that could be absorbed by martial artists for their own use. Under normal circumstances, the illusory realm could last for 7 days. However, if someone obtained the illusion jade, the illusory realm would disintegrate prematurely. Other than the illusion jade, there were other opportunities in the illusory realm, such as true martial stones that also contained true martial qi and spirit herbs with various effects. Of course, opportunities were often accompanied by danger. Although different illusory realms had different levels of danger, even the lowest level of the Black Illusory Realm might have 1 or 2 terrifying existences within. Are you going to the illusory realm this time? Of course. Perhaps I'll encounter an opportunity and break through to the mortal evolution state. Last time, half of the people died. Fortune comes from danger. Listening to the conversations of the disciples coming and going on the bluestone path, the corners of Chu Bei's mouth raised into a faint smile. Little martial uncle, will you go to the illusory realm? Mu Shuer bit her teeth and stared at Chu Bei with her big watery eyes. The illusory realm is very dangerous. Every year, many senior brothers and sisters won't be able to come out. Don't worry, little martial uncle is the chosen one. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. Since the system wanted him to experience it, he naturally couldn't miss out on every opportunity. 3 days passed in a flash. Disciples who want to enter the purple cloud illusory realm gather at the square immediately. Suddenly, a powerful voice resounded in every corner of the purple cloud sect. Oh shit! Is she really one of the leading teachers? She looks about the same age as me. Indeed, I've been in the sect for 2 years, but I haven't seen this teacher yet. Don't guess blindly if you don't know. Although teacher Xia is about the same age as us, she's a real master of the physical martial state, a 3-star martial spirit. The reason why you haven't seen her in the sect is because she went out to experience 2 years ago. It's also because of the death of the old sect leader that she came back. At this moment, the square was already crowded with people and the air was filled with all kinds of noises and discussions. In the crowd, Chu Bei looked at the girl in purple who was being discussed by the disciples and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. The girl in purple was called Xia Hanyan. She was the pro-disciple of the original Chu Bei's father. And the original Chu Bei and his father were from the same master, which was the previous sect leader. In terms of seniority, this girl who was 1 or 2 years older than him had to call him martial uncle. Ever since Chu Bei came to this plane, the thing that gave him the most headaches was seniority. To be honest, most of the people here had to call him martial uncle. Keep quiet. Xia Hanyan didn't use a loudspeaker, but her cold voice filled the whole square. Although I'm only a few years older than you, I hope you can give me the respect I deserve. You're all gathered here, presumably to enter the illusion. Due to the restrictions of the illusion, only 3 martial spirits are allowed to enter the purple cloud illusion every year. I'm very lucky to be one of them. Speaking up to this point, Xia Hanyan's gaze swept across some of the people in the square and continued. Different from the restriction of the number of martial spirits, any disciple of the mortal evolution state and the chi refinement state can enter the illusion. Perhaps you're looking forward to it now, fantasizing that you can get an opportunity from the illusion, fantasizing that you can use it to achieve meteoric success. I have to say, there are indeed many opportunities in the illusion, but opportunities are often accompanied by danger. I think most of you haven't entered the illusion before or have only entered it once. If you die inside, you're dead. No one will even bring your corpse back to the sect. Chapter 745. The illusory realm is very dangerous, and the opening of the illusory realm every year is different from the previous year. Even I don't know what will be in the illusory realm this time. Maybe I won't be able to come back. Following Xia Hanyan's speech, the jovial expressions of the disciples in the square disappeared and were replaced by a solemn expression. Although they already knew what Xia Hanyan had said, hearing it from the other party's mouth, they still felt a little flustered. Actually, sometimes when you calm down and think about it, it's not bad to follow the rules and practice in the sect. Although the practice is slower, at least you don't have to worry about losing your life. Now there's still some time, you can think about it carefully. After a quarter of an hour, if you decide to enter the illusory realm, follow me to the top of the mountain. In the illusory realm, besides facing all kinds of strange creatures, you also have to be on guard against other people in the sect. Even if you have the best relationship with them, you have to be vigilant against each other. After all, in front of benefits, many people will lose their nature. Time passed by slowly. Perhaps Xia Hanyan's words had an effect. Some people chose to withdraw, but most of them still decided to enter the illusory realm. In the illusory realm, everyone will be sent to a random place. Everyone will try to stay together. If you meet me or other mentors, it's best to follow closely behind. At this point, Xia Hanyan looked at the black vortex at the top of the mountain and said in a low voice, "Those who have made their decision, get ready to follow me into the illusory realm." After everything was ready, Chu Bei squeezed into the crowd and followed the 3 mentors to the top of the mountain. Interesting. At the top of the mountain, Chu Bei looked at the black vortex calmly. There was a huge suction force in it. Enter the illusory realm. When Xia Hanyan gave the order, the disciples rose one after another, and were pulled in by the suction force in the vortex. Chu Bei was following behind a youth in white, but the moment he entered the vortex, the youth in white suddenly disappeared from his sight. In an instant, his feet that were in the air in the vortex had a foothold, and at this moment, everything in his sight started to change. Chu Bei walked on the black soil and looked around, sizing up this strange little world. Beneath his feet was a wide, pitch-black path. The end of the path could not be seen, and he did not know where it led to. To his right was a meandering stream, and in the distance were towering mountains. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Sensing the strong wind coming from behind him, Chu Bei subconsciously exerted force with his right foot and moved sideways to the left. A cold light narrowly brushed past Chu Bei's right hand. Chu Bei steadied himself and looked ahead. When he saw the person who tried to kill him, the corner of his mouth twitched. In front of him, a big white rabbit was glaring at him fiercely, with a knife in its mouth. The rabbit's figure moved again, rushing towards Chu Bei. This time, Chu Bei did not dodge. His right hand was wrapped in Genesis Heaven power, and his palm turned into a claw as he grabbed the blade. Gotcha! Chu Bei exerted force, and the knife in the rabbit's mouth broke into two with a crisp breaking sound. With its weapon destroyed, the rabbit did not run away. Instead, it became even more ferocious. It squeaked twice at Chu Bei, opened its mouth, and pounced towards his neck. Bang! Chu Bei punched out and felt the impact of the rabbit. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. The rabbit's strength was not weaker than an 8th stage Qi tempering cultivator. Of course, this kind of strength was far from being his match. Amidst a howl, the rabbit's figure smashed into the stream like a cannonball. After resting for a while, Chu Bei fell into a daze. His cultivation had dissipated, and he could not tell north from south. Where should he go now? The most important thing in an illusion was the illusion jade, and the illusion jade would exist in the center of the illusion. But the problem was, how could he determine where the center was? Just as Chu Bei was at a loss, a loud noise suddenly came from the distant sky. Then, the void began to distort, and a circular red light pillar fell from the distortion. Looking at the circular light pillar, some information flashed in Chu Bei's mind. The corners of his mouth curved, and his gaze became firm. With the target's location, everything would be easy. Grand Marshal Uncle? Why are you here? That's right, you're just a cripple, without cultivation. Isn't it the same as sending yourself to your death? Don't just stand there. We're being targeted by a big guy. Run! If you're too slow, you'll lose your life. Just as Chu Bei was about to rush to the central area, a wave of terrified shouts entered his ears. Looking towards the source of the sound, he saw a group of people madly rushing towards his direction. These bastards! Chu Bei frowned. These guys knew there was danger, but they still ran towards him. There was a huge black shadow chasing after them. Looking at it carefully, the black shadow looked like a wild boar in the mountains on Earth. The only difference was that it was twice as big. What an unexpected experience! Chu Bei sighed. In the chase, 2 disciples had already fallen to the ground. Blood flowed from their wounds and dyed the ground red. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Grand Marshal Uncle, run! The disciple running at the front shouted again. Chu Bei hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he clenched his fists. He couldn't bear to watch this group of people who called him Grand Marshal Uncle die. Grand Marshal Uncle, do you really want to die? Sigh. Looking at Chu Bei running over, the group of disciples sighed. Roar! The big wild boar at the front seemed to have sensed Chu Bei's provocation. After a roar, it retreated and increased its speed by a notch. Looking at the wild boar that was getting closer and closer, Chu Bei held his breath and punched out with both fists. Bang! In an instant, the 2 forces collided with each other. The big wild boar's huge body suddenly stopped. Then, its head that was right in front of Chu Bei's fist was deflated. Then, it was sent flying. Along with the sound of a heavy crash, the wild boar that was sent flying by Chu Bei spat out white foam from its mouth. Its body was twitching non-stop. After a short exchange, Chu Bei finally understood why this group of chi refinement stage kids wanted to run away. It seems like this wild boar's strength had already reached the first celestial layer of Exivia. Not far away, the escaping disciples stopped running. Each of them turned around and stared at Chu Bei. Their eyes were filled with shock. Damn, that big guy is dead. None of us were a match for it. Grand Marshal Uncle killed it alone. Grand Marshal Uncle, wasn't your cultivation crippled? How could you still kill it? Could it be that the genius Grand Marshal Uncle has returned? Grand Marshal Uncle, you were once my only idol. When I first entered the sect, my first dream was to be like you and have my name on the heaven ranking. In the midst of the discussion, the group of disciples looked at Chu Bei with admiration. Chapter 746. How dare you enter the illusion with such low cultivation? You must be tired of living. Chu Bei brushed the dust off his body and was about to leave. Granduncle Master, aren't you coming with us? When the disciples saw Chu Bei leaving, they hurriedly got up and ran forward. Go with you? Chu Bei's lips curled into a playful arc. Yes, there's strength in numbers. It's too dangerous for you to be alone. That's right, we can look for the mentors together. We'll be safe once we find them. The disciples chimed in one after another, trying to rope Chu Bei into their team. I don't want to bring burdens like you along. If we're fated, we'll meet in the central area. Chu Bei smiled and sped up towards the direction of the circular light pillar. The night was getting darker. Chu Bei didn't continue on his journey. Instead, he searched for a place to rest. Just as he was passing over a hill, a miserable shriek could be heard, mixed with curses. Following the source of the voice, Chu Bei slowly approached. Liao, you son of a bitch! I've followed the wrong person! Wan Hu, you can't blame me for this. If I didn't use you as bait, we would all have to die here. I'd rather die in my current state. Do you want me to fulfill your wish? You'll go to hell. If God can take me in, then let him do it. Chu Bei stood behind a rock. In front of him, a long-haired young man was writhing on the ground in pain. His lower body was festering as if he had just been bitten by some ferocious beast. Beside the long-haired young man stood a tall and skinny young man. At the feet of the tall and skinny young man was a 2-meter-long beast. Coincidentally, the long-haired young man on the ground was beaten up by him 3 days ago. Under Chu Bei's gaze, Liao pulled out the long sword from the beast's body and stabbed it into Wang Hu's neck. How brutal! Just as Chu Bei was about to label Liao as an inhumane person, a strong gust of wind came from behind him. He was very familiar with this feeling. As expected, it was a big white rabbit with a knife in its mouth. Chu Bei subconsciously dodged to the side, and then chopped down with a hand knife. Accompanied by a dull thud, the big white rabbit crashed heavily to the ground, no longer breathing. Who is it? Almost at the same time, Liao's cold voice drifted in the air. Amidst the rustling sounds, Liao's figure flashed and appeared behind the mountain rock in the blink of an eye. When he saw Chu Bei's appearance clearly, the corners of his mouth immediately lifted into a sinister and vicious smile. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you want to throw yourself into it. Liao hurriedly wiped the blood off the blade. Chu Bei, I was just about to look for you, but you delivered yourself to me. It seems that God is really kind to me. Little Marshal nephew, what are you looking for Marshal uncle for? Although Chu Bei had a guess in his heart, he still pretended to be nonchalant on the surface. You say, isn't it good to be an ordinary person? With Xian Sec supporting you, you don't have to worry about food and drink. But you just happen to have some kind of opportunity and can actually cultivate again. Liao's face suddenly became gloomy. Do you know that your existence is an extremely unstable factor to father? Little Marshal nephew, hearing what you said, you're not going to kill me in this illusion, are you? Chu Bei's face did not show the slightest expression of fear, and even laughed mockingly. Hee, if I kill you here, no one will know. The people outside won't associate your death with us either. After all, in the illusion, death is a normal thing. As Liao spoke, he shook his long sword, and the corners of his mouth revealed a terrifying smile. Little martial nephew, don't be anxious. Chu Bei smiled faintly. I have a question that I'm very curious about. What is it? Liao played with his long sword. Since you're going to be a dead man soon, I'll satisfy your curiosity. The question is... Chu Bei dragged his words, and suddenly changed his tone. Where did you get the confidence to think that the person who will die here will be me and not you? As the cold voice that was mixed with killing intent fell, Chu Bei's figure moved, and a fist went straight for Liao's head. The sudden change caused Liao's expression to change. After quickly taking a step back, he also clenched his fist and punched out. Bang! The two fists collided. Chu Bei's figure stood firm, but Liao was forced back, and his feet left a 2-centimeter mark on the ground. How is this possible? Liao suppressed the blood in his chest, and looked at Chu Bei in horror. You're clearly only at the 8th level of Qi tempering, but your strength. Who told you that my cultivation is at the 8th level of Qi tempering? Chu Bei glanced at Liao in disdain, and then pointed at Wang Hu's body on the ground. Could it be him? Damn it! You hid your strength from him? Liao frowned deeply. Of course, if I used my full strength, he would have been a corpse 3 days ago. Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest, and there was mockery between his brows. Don't you think so? My little martial nephew. After hearing Chu Bei's words, Liao took a deep breath. Through the previous exchange, he was very sure that Chu Bei's cultivation was at the 3rd level of exuvia or even higher. He wasn't someone that he, who had just reached the mortal evolution state, could deal with. Thinking about this, Liao didn't hesitate at all, and quickly turned around and ran away. Want to run? Chu Bei sneered, and chased after him at an even faster speed. 3 minutes later, Wang Hu's body was beside Wang Hu. There was an extra corpse next to Wang Hu. This corpse was already beaten beyond recognition, and its entire body was covered with purplish-red bruises. Some parts of its head were even deeply sunken in, and it was very frightening. After casually using a few leaves to cover the two corpses, Chu Bei continued to look for a place to rest for the night. That's where the sound of fighting came from. Quick, come and see! There's a corpse here! This... Liao! He's actually dead. Did you perish together with this beast? I know this other person too, he's called Wang Hu. Looking at his legs, it was clearly bitten by the beast. But why does Liao's death look so weird? It feels like he was punched to death by someone's fist. Sigh, if the first elder knew that his precious son died in such a miserable state, who knows how sad he would be. Poor guy, why can't this Liao understand? If I were him, I wouldn't come to the illusion realm. I just want to wait for my dad to successfully become the sect leader, and then peacefully be the young sect leader. How beautiful would that be? Not long after Chu Bei left, a group of disciples came to the side of the corpses, and they buried them while sighing. The night was getting darker, and one couldn't even see their fingers if they stretched out their hand. Chu Bei had already arrived at the waist of a mountain peak. He was still climbing up, because there was a cave at a higher point, and there was a faint light of fire in the cave. In the night, although he couldn't do it as if it was daytime, it wasn't to the extent that he couldn't see anything. Chapter 747. It smells so good. Just as he reached the entrance of the cave, the aroma of meat wafted into Chu Bei's nostrils. Following the aroma, Chu Bei continued to go deeper. Just as he turned a corner, Chu Bei was stunned. His expression was as if he had seen something inconceivable. Indeed, he had seen a strange scene. A Xiaohei dog. That's right, a dog. It was skillfully roasting meat. Xiaohei dog sat cross-legged on the ground. Its two front paws skillfully skewered meat, and placed it between two stones that were already set up. The area between the stones was burning with a raging flame. When the flame was extinguished, Xiaohei dog would skillfully push a wooden stick inside. Looking at the huge carcass of a wild beast beside it, and looking at the fresh blood flowing out, it seemed to have died not long ago. Soon, the meat skewers turned yellow. Xiaohei dog stretched out its paws to pick up the meat skewers and leisurely gnawed on them. When the meat skewers were finished, it did the same thing again. Skewering meat, roasting it, adding more fire. The cycle repeated itself. Woof, woof! Suddenly, a dog barking filled with anger reached Chu Bei's ears. Chu Bei came back to his senses and realized that he had been discovered by Xiaohei dog. It was glaring at him fiercely. Good boy, don't be afraid. I'm just passing by and came to ask for a meal. Chu Bei did not care whether Xiaohei dog could understand him or not. He walked toward the barbecue area as if they were familiar with each other. Woof! Before Chu Bei could take 2 steps, Xiaohei dog barked. It then opened its mouth and took a deep breath. Then, a blazing fireball was spat out. Little guy, is this how you treat your guests? Do you believe that I won't kill you and eat your dog meat? Chu Bei glared at Xiaohei dog and narrowly avoided the fireball. Xiaohei dog seemed to understand Xiang Fei's words. Its expression became even more ferocious. Another fireball was spat out from its mouth. Don't push your luck! Chu Bei glanced at the ground that was scorched black by the fireball. He was only a mortal now. If he was hit by this fireball, it would not be fun. However, Xiaohei was clearly not prepared to let Chu Bei go. The frequency of its fireballs spitting out increased. Due to the increased speed of the fireballs, Chu Bei's footsteps began to become frantic, and he was almost hit in the head by a fireball. Chu Bei hurriedly used his Genesis Heaven power to form a cloak around his body. Chi chi chi, Xiaohei's fireball smashed onto Chu Bei's cloak. Although it was powerful, it did not cause any damage to Chu Bei. Chu Bei shot a glance at Xiaohei the dog. Then, under Xiaohei's gaze, he leisurely sat beside the grill. Little dog, I've spent a lot of money for this meat. He did not have much Genesis Heaven power left. It could be said that the more he used it, the less he had. Fortunately, with the Genesis Heaven cloak, he did not have to worry about being hurt for a short period of time. Woof 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 woof. Upon seeing Chu Bei sit where it previously sat and unable to hurt him, Xiaohei seemed to have gone mad. It circled around Chu Bei and barked non-stop. I never imagined that there would be a day when I would have to fight with a dog for food. Chu Bei mocked himself as he roasted the meat. Perhaps it was because Chu Bei had used up too much energy after running for an entire afternoon, but it did not take long for him to finish off more than half of the beast's carcasses. When he was full, Chu Bei seemed to realize something and immediately looked around. Xiaohei was gone. It's good that it's gone. Let me have a good sleep alone. Chu Bei lazily stretched his back and found a rock to lean on. However, just as he closed his eyes, he heard a gust of wind. Crack! A sharp sound rang out. His cloak seemed to have been sliced by a sharp blade. Fortunately, the cloak's defense was strong enough. Otherwise, his body would have been cut open. Chu Bei shivered as a look of vigilance appeared on his face. But the problem was, when he looked around, there was nothing. Could it be that a space-type boss had entered? An unknown enemy was the most terrifying. Chu Bei did not dare to be careless and hurriedly used his Genesis Heaven power to scan his surroundings. At this moment, he saw that to his left, behind the rock that he had been leaning on, the little black dog was quietly squatting there, its eyes locked onto him. So it's you. You gave me a fright. The corners of Chu Bei's mouth could not help but twitch. That bastard had not left. Naturally, the one who had attacked him earlier wasn't some space elemental expert. It was this little black dog. However, this was no ordinary dog, but a second-rate dog that could breathe fire and turn invisible. Little guy, you dared to sneak attack me! Chu Bei softly muttered as he rubbed his palms together. He pretended to be confused as he walked towards the rock he was leaning on earlier. As he expected, Xiao Hei's face lit up with joy when it saw him walking towards the rock. Its sharp claws had already begun waving, as if it would give Chu Bei a vicious attack as long as he leaned on the rock. It would tear open the cloak and pierce Chu Bei's throat. 7 steps, 5 steps, 3 steps. The human was getting closer and closer. Its sharp claws were already raised, flickering with a cold light. Woof! Xiao Hei barked excitedly and swiped its claws towards Chu Bei's throat. However, just as its claws were about to touch the human's neck, the human reached out and grabbed it by the neck with a clang. Immediately after, the human lifted it into the air. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with confusion. It did not understand how the human did it. Could it be that the human had heaven's eye and could see it? Little guy, you're good. I thought you had left. I didn't expect you to be looking for an opportunity to kill me. Chu Bei grabbed Xiao Hei's neck with one hand and kneaded Xiao Hei's body with the other. Unknowingly, he had already kneaded it into a ball. However, if there was anyone else present, they would definitely think that Chu Bei was crazy because there was nothing in his hands. Xiao Hei struggled madly, but it was not very strong. No matter how hard it tried, it could not escape from Chu Bei's demonic claws. If you don't show yourself, I will roast you and eat you. Chu Bei pointed at the barbecue stall at the side and pretended to be fierce. Woof, 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 woof. The panicked barks of the dog filled the entire cave. Xiao Hei obviously understood Chu Bei's words. After barking, it revealed its true form and glared at Chu Bei unwillingly. I entered your territory and ate your meat. I am in the wrong. As long as you promise not to attack me again, I will let you go. Also, I haven't finished eating the meat. You can continue eating as if I don't exist. Chu Bei felt that he was very noble. He let go of a person who wanted to kill him. No, a dog. Woof! Xiao Hei nodded repeatedly. At the same time, it kept blinking at Chu Bei, as if it was asking how Chu Bei discovered it. Chu Bei stroked the dog's head and smiled without saying anything. That night, Chu Bei slept exceptionally well. In his dreams, he could even smell the fragrance of roasted meat. Other than that, he could also hear the low growls of the dog. Has it already left? A ray of light penetrated the cave. Chu Bei perceived the entire mountain through observation hockey. Xiao Hei had disappeared. There was only a pile of broken bones that had been eaten clean by it. After stretching his muscles and bones, Chu Bei continued on the road towards the central area. Chapter 748. That's really far. In the desert, Chu Bei sat cross-legged under a withered old tree, looking at the unreachable light pillar and sighing. Training with the body of a mortal was not an easy task. He did not know how far he had traveled, but he was sure that he was at least a third of the way to the light pillar. Rumble. Chu Bei had just finished resting, but before he could get up, a loud rumble came from afar, and the sand under his feet trembled. Is my luck really that bad? Chu Bei frowned, and his face became more serious. There was definitely something strange about this. It had been a whole day since he left the cave, but he had encountered 7 waves of beast tides in just one day. In the forest, he had been attacked by wolves, by crocodiles on the banks of the river, and in the mountains, he had been bitten by lions. Fortunately, he could still deal with these beast tides, and did not suffer any injuries. At first, he thought that he was unlucky, always encountering migrating beast tides, but as the number of times increased, he began to have doubts. Now, he was in the desert, but he could still encounter a group of lizards. It was really strange. This time, Chu Bei did not take the offensive. Instead, he carefully observed his surroundings. Bang! 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 Hundreds of lizards rammed into Chu Bei, but Chu Bei did not move. He realized that these lizards seemed to be angered, and their eyes were red, as if they were looking for something. Under Chu Bei's deliberate search, it did not take long for a familiar fellow to appear in his line of sight. Xiao Hei the dog. That Xiao Hei the dog was hiding about 10 meters away from him. Most of its body was buried in the sand, and only its small head was exposed, staring at him. So it's you! Chu Bei clenched his fists. It seemed that this Xiao Hei the dog was a little bitch who held grudges. Facing Chu Bei's gaze, Xiao Hei the dog shrunk its neck, especially when it saw the human's creepy smile, and turned its head without hesitation. You want to run now? Chu Bei sneered and closed the distance of nearly 10 meters in the blink of an eye. Xiao Hei didn't even have time to turn invisible before it was caught in his hand. Woof woof, woof woof. Once again falling into Chu Bei's hands, Xiao Hei wagged its tail and looked at Xiang Fei pitifully. From time to time, it would bark like a spoiled child. Little fellow, now you know how to act pitiful? You want me to let you go? Chu Bei stroked the dog's head. His eyes narrowed as he clenched his right fist and punched out. Bang! Xiao Hei let out a miserable cry. Another punch was thrown out. Xiao Hei's pitiful cries continued to fill the air, evoking pity from those who heard it. Bang, bang, bang. Your skin is quite thick. After hundreds of punches, Chu Bei retracted his fists. Looking at his opponent's swaying body, he smiled knowingly. Woof, woof! Xiao Hei's whole body was swollen as if it had been stung by a swarm of bees. It endured the pain and weakly barked twice. Its voice was mixed with monstrous anger. Its eyes were fixed on Chu Bei, full of unwillingness. What are you looking at? What, you don't want to admit defeat? Chu Bei raised his fist. Xiao Hei snorted and proudly turned its head away. That's it for this time. If you dare to make trouble for me again, I'll kill you. Chu Bei made a throat-slitting gesture and swung his arm to throw Xiao Hei into the air. Then, he punched with all his strength. Ow, ow! The little fellow's face was twisted in pain. Its roar was no longer a dog's bark, but a wolf's howl. Looking at Xiao Hei, who was gradually disappearing into the distance, Chu Bei nodded with satisfaction. With this lesson and threat, the other party would not dare to provoke him again. Mother ***, where did that dog come from? Who knows? Have we ever offended it? It attacked us sneakily all the time. Since ancient times, haven't dogs been the most loyal companions of human beings? Damn it, why did it rebel against us? The problem is that it can even turn invisible. After attacking us, it ran away. There's no trace of it at all. It's really hateful. It had been half a day since Chu Bei beat Xiao Hei. During this time, he saw too many dead humans. Some were badly mutilated by ferocious beasts, some had sword wounds on their bodies, which seemed to be done by their own kind, and some even had intact clothes and no wounds on their bodies, but they were dead. In addition, he also heard a lot of voices about the crusade against Xiao Hei. Perhaps Xiao Hei hated him to the core, but it did not dare to come to him, so it targeted other humans. Great-uncle, you're still alive. Great-uncle, did you know? Liao is dead. Among the people who were discussing the little black dog earlier, someone noticed Chu Bei and his brows were furrowed in surprise. Chu Bei greeted them with a smile. Some of the people in this group were saved by him from the big wild boar. Chu Bei, congratulations. I'm really happy for you after knowing that you can cultivate again. A young man in white who was about 21 or 22 years old walked up and patted Chu Bei's arm. But I'm very curious. How did you get here? The young man in white was confused. They were not far from the central area now. Too many people had died along the way. It was not easy for them to survive until now. Every one of them had fought with ferocious beasts before, and most of them were injured. Fortunately, there were close to 10 mortal evolution state disciples among them. Only by moving forward together in a group could the risk of death be reduced. However, at this moment, the prodigy whose cultivation level was crippled and cultivated again actually appeared in front of them without any injuries. The young man in white was called Lu Fei. He was also the leader of this group. His cultivation level was at level 7 of Exuvia and was on the heaven ranking like Chu Bei. In terms of cultivation level, Chu Bei was far from being a match for Lu Fei. I ran all the way here, Chu Bei answered casually. Who asked you this? I mean, how did you survive from those mortal evolution state ferocious beasts? Lu Fei asked. Ferocious beasts? I was very safe along the way. I didn't encounter any ferocious beasts. Did you guys encounter them? Chu Bei pretended to be shocked. Although he encountered some ferocious beasts that he couldn't defeat, they couldn't do anything to him because of the blue charm cape. Everyone's mouth twitched at the same time when they heard Chu Bei's answer. It seemed that this young martial uncle didn't encounter any ferocious beasts ever since he came to the illusion realm. This luck was truly heaven-defying. Chu Bei, this illusion realm is actually quite dangerous. Most of us crawled out from the pile of death. You're the only lucky one. You can follow us from now on. Lu Fei patted Chu Bei's shoulder and smiled. Okay. Chu Bei nodded. This Lu Fei's relationship with the original Chu Bei wasn't bad. By the way, there's a mad dog attacking us these 2 days. You need to be careful. It can kill you with one claw, Lu Fei said again. Chapter 749. Thank you for the reminder. Chu Bei clasped his fists. If Xiao Hei's dog dared to attack the team with him, he would not mind killing it. Eh? Why isn't that mad dog here yet? It's a little strange. It's already dark. Could it be that the mad dog can't find us? If that's the case, that's great. We don't have to worry about being bitten by the dog. The sky was already dark. The most discussed topic among the crowd was why Xiao Hei's dog had not attacked them yet. Chu Bei was in the middle of the team with a smile on his face. Actually, Xiao Hei's dog had already visited them earlier. However, the other party had noticed his presence immediately. The man and the dog stared at each other for 30 seconds. Xiao Hei's dog bared its teeth and left unwillingly. The closer they got to the center of the secret realm, the more desolate it became. At that moment, there were only bare mountain ridges and the spreading yellow soil. The few trees that were left were all dead. Where's the opportunity that was promised? Was it all a lie? This place is too empty. Luckily, we brought enough water. Otherwise, we would have died of thirst in this godforsaken place. Although there are no green plants or streams here, the view is good. We can spot the attacking beasts immediately. Listen! What's that sound? Suddenly, Lu Fei shouted. At the same time, he gestured for everyone to keep quiet. Chu Bei frowned. He had also heard it. It seemed to be a human's voice, but it was mixed with fear. It's Instructor Xia! They seem to be in trouble! Lu Fei was the first to speak as they climbed over a high yellow slope. Chu Bei quickened his pace and soon arrived beside Lu Fei. When he was on the high slope, he finally understood the magic of the secret realm. The central area covered by the red light was like the inner circle of a concentric circle. Between the inner circle and the outer circle was a bottomless ravine. Outside the outer circle, there were layers of mountain walls, like a natural barrier. Within these mountain walls, there were 5 large canyons arranged in a circular pattern. The ends of these canyons converged at one place, which was the outer circle. At this moment, in the canyon closest to them, nearly 100 people were gathered together. Looking at their frightened expressions, it seemed that they had encountered a thorny problem. Senior Brother Lu, are those ghosts? One of the people who followed behind him asked tentatively. Maybe. After all, I've never seen it before. Lu Fei took a deep breath and replied with uncertainty. Chu Bei looked down expressionlessly. At this moment, those people wearing the robes of the Purple Cloud sect were dealing with these ghosts. The one leading them was Xia Hanyan. Other than Xia Hanyan, Chu Bei also saw some of his former friends. These people all had their names on the heaven list. They were all at least Exuvia 5th celestial layer. Teacher, save me! I can't control my body. Suddenly, a terrified voice drifted through the air. It was a red-haired young man. His body was out of control, and he was slashing at his companion with a long sword. "Teacher, these ghosts can't be destroyed at all." A tall and thin young man defeated a ghost with a punch. In less than 2 seconds, the dissipated ghost gathered together again. Hearing the shouts of the surrounding disciples, Xia Hanyan frowned. Although it was not the first time she entered the secret realm, she had never encountered ghosts before. Even if these ghosts were defeated, they would immediately regenerate. Once they were entangled by the other party, it seemed that they would lose the autonomy of their body and be controlled by the other party. Looking at the disciples killing each other, Xia Hanyan was at a loss. She could only increase the frequency of her attacks in an attempt to attract more ghosts to attack her. Damn it! How can these ghosts be completely destroyed? The battlefield became even more chaotic. More than half of the disciples in the group were already controlled by the ghosts. At this moment, the disciples who were still fighting were no longer facing ghosts, but their companions who were controlled by the ghosts. The situation was extremely passive. Don't be confused. Xia Hanyan glanced at the surrounding people. Her lips moved slightly, and her cold voice once again drifted out from her mouth. You are indeed an expert of the martial contact realm. Chu Bei's gaze shot towards Xia Hanyan, his eyes filled with praise. At this moment, there were at least 30 ghosts surrounding Xia Hanyan, but none of these ghosts could get close to her. A thin layer of spirit armor condensed on the surface of Xia Hanyan's body. This armor formed by true martial qi completely isolated her from the ghosts. On the contrary, the ghosts that were cut by Xia Hanyan's true martial qi wind blades were instantly divided into several parts. What gave Xia Hanyan a headache was that although these ghosts could not do anything to her, she could not do anything to them either. It was all because of their strange innate ability to regenerate. Disciples on the slope, leave quickly. Choose another canyon to enter the central area. Xia Hanyan discovered the presence of Lu Fei, Chu Bei, and the rest. Her cold voice carried a majesty that did not allow for refusal. Senior Lu, what do we do now? The group waited for Lu Fei's instructions. Listen to Teacher Xia, choose another canyon. Lu Fei said straightforwardly. If even Xia Hanyan could not solve the problem, they were even more helpless. If they went down to help, they might even send themselves into the abyss. Chu Bei maintained his silence. Very quickly he noticed the clues on the ghosts. Every ghost had the same invisible energy wave. This energy came from a transparent white ball the size of a fist. In Chu Bei's perception, when these ghosts were defeated, the white ball would produce a transparent thread. This thread would quickly reassemble the disintegrated body. The position of the white ball on every ghost was different. Some were on the chest, some on the head, some on the limbs. Chu Bei, where are you going? I'm going to help. Chu Bei smiled. After waving at Lu Fei to signal him not to worry, he took large strides and ran towards the canyon below. Nis Hanyan, you can't attack like this! Chu Bei shouted at Xia Hanyan as he ran. The sudden voice made Chu Bei the focus of everyone. Especially Xia Hanyan. When she heard this familiar and annoying voice, her originally cold eyes were filled with a fire that could devour people. Chu Bei, teacher's death has dealt a big blow to you. I'm happy for you that you can cultivate again. But with your current cultivation, entering the dreamland, there's only a slim chance of survival. At this point, Xia Hanyan lowered her voice and looked at Chu Bei. Also, didn't you hear what I said just now? Didn't I ask you to leave? Why are you still here? Nis Hanyan, we haven't seen each other for 2 years. Don't act like we're strangers. The atmosphere is so weird. After merging with the memories of the original Chu Bei could not help but tease. In terms of age, Xia Hanyan was 2 years older than Chu Bei. Because he had been under her father's tutelage since he was young, they grew up together and could be considered childhood sweethearts. But ever since she was young, this Xia Hanyan had relied on the fact that her cultivation was slightly higher and would beat up Chu Bei from time to time. She called it the caress of love. In fact, the reason why Chu Bei was beaten up was because of their seniority. Chapter 750. Just when a ghost suddenly appeared behind Chu Bei, Xia Hanyan anxiously called out, "Chu Bei, be careful behind you. It's fine, to me, cutting them is as easy as cutting tofu." Chu Bei revealed a smile that he thought was very handsome, and without turning his head, he threw a punch behind him, hitting the ghost's right arm. Chi! Different from Xia Hanyan and the rest's attack, Chu Bei's attack seemed to have hit a physical body, bringing out a strange sound. "Don't be careless, these ghosts are indestructible, they will recover." Not long after Xia Hanyan said this, her expression changed, because the ghost that Chu Bei defeated did not recover. How is this possible? How did you do it?" After confirming that the ghost had really dissipated, Xia Hanyan's eyes flashed with a trace of undetectable joy. However, Chu Bei did not answer Xia Hanyan's question, and only saw his figure dancing among the floating ghosts, his left and right fists striking out rhythmically. Wherever he passed, every punch would be accompanied by the dissipation of a ghost. In just a few seconds, the number of ghosts on the scene was reduced by half. "What did young martial uncle do? Why can he disperse these ghosts, but we can't? Look carefully at young martial uncle's fist, there's true martial chi. His cultivation is of the mortal evolution state. Teacher Xia is a master of the contact martial state, but she can't do anything to these ghosts. There must be something fishy going on here. Who cares, young martial uncle is the nemesis of these ghosts, his arrival will save us." The disciples who were not controlled by the ghosts looked at each other, their expressions were filled with excitement. In just 2 minutes, Chu Bei had dealt with all the floating ghosts, and then set his sights on the ghosts that were attached to the disciples. These ghosts stuck closely to the backs of the people being controlled, and they seemed to know that Chu Bei was their nemesis, so they controlled the hosts to attack Chu Bei. "Nice Han Yan, do you have a way to temporarily restrain these people?" Chu Bei looked straight at Xia Hanyan. As these disciples who were being controlled were too close to the spirits, he was worried that he would accidentally injure these disciples when he shattered the white ball. In order to prevent such a situation from occurring, he had to keep these disciples in a stationary state. "It will consume a lot of energy, but I can do it." Xia Hanyan pursed her lips and nodded after thinking for a while. With that, Xia Hanyan clasped her palms together and chopped horizontally. Vines formed from true martial chi appeared. These vines were very fast, wandering among the crowd. Every time they passed by an uncontrollable disciple, they would wrap around him and firmly bind him. "What are you going to do now?" Xia Hanyan's cheeks were slightly red and beads of sweat had already formed on her forehead. It was obvious that restraining over 30 people at the same time was an extremely strenuous task for her. Chu Bei did not hesitate. After snatching the long sword from a nearby person, he quickly circled behind a long-haired girl who was still struggling under the control of a ghost. After that, under everyone's gaze, Chu Bei raised the long sword high and chopped down close to the long-haired girl's back. To be exact, he chopped down on the spirit that was close to the long-haired girl. In an instant, the spirit dissipated. "She's fine now, you can let her go." Chu Bei looked at Xia Hanyan and pointed at the long-haired girl in front of him. Xia Hanyan hesitated for a moment, and then tentatively released the vine. "It's fine, I'm fine." The long-haired girl moved her body. When she realized that she had regained control of her body, she cried tears of joy. "Thank you, Junior Uncle, for saving me." Unknowingly, all the disciples who were being controlled by the spirits regained their freedom. One by one, they surrounded Chu Bei and thanked him profusely with a grateful look on their faces. Obviously, this group of disciples had already acknowledged Chu Bei from the bottom of their hearts. "Chu Bei, those spirits just now were dealt with by you." The spirits dissipated and Lu Fei led a group of people down from the high slope. "Didn't you see it?" Chu Bei shrugged. "How did you do it?" Xia Hanyan stroked the hair on her forehead and questioned Chu Bei. Chu Bei gestured for her to keep quiet and pretended to be mysterious. I can't say. As his voice fell, under the gloomy gaze of the crowd, Chu Bei continued to go deeper into the canyon. The rest of the journey was smooth. After a quarter of an hour, Xia Hanyan and the others arrived at the outer circle area. There were already many people gathered here. The two people in the lead were the other two mentors who led the team this time. Hanyan, you're a little late. When I found out that one of the leaders was you, I was quite surprised. The youngest mentor in the Purple Cloud sect, a genius girl. Those guys in the sect are not afraid of you dying here. It's fine if old guys like us die, but you're different. You have a bright future ahead of you. Seeing Xia Hanyan's arrival, the other two mentors joked with a smile. Senior Brother Chen, Senior Brother Zhou, don't make fun of me. Since you're here first, why don't you enter the central area? Xia Hanyan pointed to the front, and her calm words carried a trace of respect. As of now, we haven't thought of a way to bring them over. Qinyu pointed to the bottomless ravine in front of them. He was the first to lead the team here. There's no path at all? Xia Hanyan frowned slightly. Only when one reached the martial general realm could one stay in the void for a short period of time. With their martial spirit cultivation, they were still unable to cross this ravine. There's no path. Qinyu shook his head. Hanyan, your brain is better than ours. Do you have any good way to cross? Xia Hanyan did not answer and chose to remain silent. Something's coming up. Suddenly, a disciple closest to the ravine exclaimed. Hearing this, everyone looked at the ravine. Countless white clouds appeared in the pitch-black ravine. Mentor, what's this? A disciple looked at Qinyu. Qinyu frowned and did not answer the disciple's question immediately. Instead, he flicked the stone in his hand and the stone landed steadily on the white clouds. That white cloud seems to be able to bear weight. Can we step on it? This way, we can enter the central area. Don't be anxious. We'll listen to the mentor. Amidst the discussion of the disciples, Xia Hanyan, Qinyu and Zhou Qing exchanged glances. I'll try. As her voice fell, Xia Hanyan moved and came to the ravine in an instant. Under everyone's gaze, Xia Hanyan took a step forward and stepped onto the white cloud. Then, her 2 feet stood firmly on the white cloud. It can really bear weight. I knew it. After going through so much to come here, how can there be no way to enter the central area? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go! When the crowd saw that Xia Hanyan was standing safely on the white cloud, they started to discuss among themselves. Then, they ran towards the gully excitedly. In an instant, the scene became chaotic and surging. Everyone, don't be anxious. Before Xia Hanyan could finish her words, there were already close to 100 people who had stepped onto the cloud and ran towards the central area in a frenzy. Suddenly, horrified screams sounded, one after another. Chapter 751. He fell down. How did this happen? Isn't it safe? The disciples who were originally rushing towards the gully saw the scene in front of them and were so scared that they immediately stopped their footsteps. The first group of people who stepped on the cloud actually stepped on the air one after another. To be exact, they didn't step on air, but the white cloud under their feet split apart by itself. This sudden change caused them to fall straight down the gully before they could even step on another cloud. Instructor Xia, save me! The disciple stood on the cloud. His legs were trembling and his lips were pale as he begged Xia Hanyan for help. Xia Hanyan pursed her lips and wrapped her legs with a layer of true martial qi. Following that, she headed towards the disciple who was begging for help. Along the way, the cloud under Xia Hanyan's feet also split apart a little, but because her speed was fast enough, before the cloud had completely split apart, the former had already stepped on another cloud. After sending the disciple who was begging for help to the other side, Xia Hanyan started to save the other students. The other 2 instructors were also doing the same. They continuously used their fastest speed to save the disciples who were too scared to move. You guys have also seen it. Although these clouds can be stepped on, there is a certain probability that they will split apart. If you are lucky, you might not encounter a split cloud. However, once a cloud splits apart, according to my estimation, I'm afraid that only those who are Exuvia 5th celestial layer and above will be able to step on the next cloud before it completely splits apart. Speaking until here, Xia Hanyan lowered her voice. Although there are many opportunities in the core region, your life is more important. This gully, whether you can cross or not is up to you guys to decide. My suggestion to you guys is that those who are not Exuvia 5th celestial layer should stay here and wait for safety. Instructor Xia is right. There are only 3 of us leading the group, we can't send you guys one by one. Just now, someone had already entered the core region. It might be even more dangerous inside. We can't possibly stay here for too long. Xinyu agreed. After speaking, the 3 instructors stepped on the cloud and flew towards the other side. Follow! Seeing the instructors going over, the disciples whose cultivation were Exuvia 5th celestial layer and above burst out with their fastest speed and rushed towards the other side. Many of the cloud under their feet had already split apart, but because the speed of these disciples was faster than the speed of the cloud splitting, all of them reached the other side safely. Are we going over? The Exuvia 5th layer disciples looked at each other. None of them were in a hurry to step on the cloud. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Opportunity comes from danger. I've already died several times on the way here, so I don't mind dying one more time. Finally, someone couldn't hold back and jumped towards the cloud. Although this person's speed couldn't compare to the 5 Nirvana-level experts, he was still considered outstanding among the disciples. He went over. Seeing that their companions had safely reached the other side, some of the disciples became restless. After some hesitation, they clenched their fists and stepped onto the journey of life and death. Chu Bei, your identity is not ordinary. For safety's sake, you should stay here. After Lu Fei greeted Chu Bei, he rushed into the ravine. I'm coming, I'm coming. Ah! Save me! The heavens want me dead. Shouts of excitement were mixed with screams of terror. Chu Bei stood in front of the gully and unhurriedly picked a cloud and stepped on it. Under the perception of his observation haki, this so-called danger didn't exist at all. The internal structure of these clouds was actually constantly changing. Between the real and the virtual, it was changing according to the 9-1 rule. After condensing for 9 seconds, it would turn into the virtual for 1 second. If one was lucky, he would step on a condensed cloud. If one was unlucky, he would. Young Martial Uncle is too calm, right? Even those Exuvia 5th layer and above wouldn't dare to be so carefree like him. Young Martial Uncle is really not afraid of death. However, his luck seems to be very good. More than half of the time has passed, and the cloud hasn't split open yet. Why do I feel that young Martial Uncle seems to have seen through the mystery? Everything is planned out between the curtains. The disciples who were waiting at the same place all cast their gaze on Chu Bei. Their eyebrows were filled with surprise. I really can't see through him at all. Xia Hanyan, who had already reached the other side, glanced at the calm Chu Bei, murmured and turned around to leave. Yuehua Island? After Chu Bei got ashore safely, his attention was immediately attracted by a huge stone tablet. The words Yuehua Island were especially eye-catching on the tablet. After arriving at Yuehua Island and entering the red halo, Chu Bei saw disciples in groups of 2s and 3s, looking for their own opportunities. As far as his eyes could see, there was a pond, clear and clear. Wisps of spiritual energy rose, and the fragrance of spiritual herbs floated around the pond. In the center, towering mountains were overflowing with colors. The spiritual trees set off the mountains, and the vines outlined the outline. It was like a fairyland. There's a fire spiritual herb there. There's a Tianyuan flower there. There's a water spiritual vine there. Those who arrived at Yuehua Island with their own strength ran in one after another. Each of them was excited, and their eyes were filled with greed. As for the group of people who arrived before Chu Bei, they were already running here and there, picking spiritual herbs of heaven and earth. In addition to absorbing the genes of life beasts, A human's physique could also be strengthened by spiritual herbs. Different spiritual herbs had different effects, and there were differences in strength. Boom! Just as the disciples were looking for their own opportunities, a golden light appeared in the center of Yohua Island, and then there was an earth-shattering roar. What's going on over there? Hearing the sound, the disciples stopped what they were doing and looked in the direction where the golden light flashed. Such a big movement! Could it be where the fantasy jade is? One of the disciples was excited, and his eyes were shining. Chu Bei, you're so lucky to have followed us in. Hearing the voice, Chu Bei looked back and saw Lu Fei running toward him. Let's go together, Chu Bei asked. That's what I want. Lu Fei patted Chu Bei's shoulder. A few minutes later. Chu Bei, do you think the fantasy jade is in there? Even if it is, can we get it? Lu Fei glanced at Chu Bei, who was beside him. In front of them, a group of people who arrived first were gathered in front of a gloomy ancient castle. The castle's door was tightly shut, and it looked very strange. The three mentors, Xia Hanyan, Zhou Qing, and Qing Yu, were at the front. Boom! Before Chu Bei could speak, a rumbling sound came from the gloomy ancient castle. Then, with a creak, the castle's door opened slowly. Looking in from the outside, it was pitch black, and it was very scary. Just then, in the dark ancient castle, there was a creaking sound, and countless pairs of green eyes lit up in the dark. Although their eyes were small, they were densely packed, and they kept rushing out of the door. Oh no! Xia Hanyan recognized the countless pairs of green eyes, and her expression changed as she screamed. Everyone, scatter and run! Zhou Qing and Qing Yu shouted at the same time after recognizing the creatures. In the next moment, the three mentors exchanged glances, and armor appeared on their bodies, blocking the dark door, as if to stop the creatures from rushing out. For those who entered the illusion, the higher their cultivation, the higher their chances of obtaining the illusion jade. At least along the way, from the ferocious beasts on the way to the ravine outside the Moonlight Island, and then the countless flesh-devouring bugs from before, after all these selection, only the Exuvia Ninth Celestial Layer disciples were left. Rumble! Suddenly, the sound of intense fighting could be heard. Chu Bei and the rest looked towards the direction of the sound. In front of the ancient castle, the three mentors were no longer fighting with the flesh-devouring bugs, but with the black-armored knights. These knights were unusually powerful. Every time they brandished the spears in their hands, there would be a flash of black lightning. Xia Hanyan and the other two were obviously serious. Each of them unleashed their speed to the extreme, and used all kinds of martial arts techniques. Each of them was entangled with a black-armored knight. Mentor, when will you guys finish fighting? A disciple seemed to be impatient and asked. Damn it, why are you rushing me? Why don't you try exchanging blows with it? Qing Yu glared fiercely at the disciple who spoke. He was already furious. The defense of the black-armored knight he was fighting with was too strong. The ferocious beasts he encountered along the way, he could kill them with a casual punch. But against this black-armored knight, he could not do anything to it even if he used all his skills. Fortunately, the opponent's attack speed was not fast, so he would not be at a disadvantage. The opportunity belongs to you, but you have to bear the risks yourself. If you have thought it through, you can enter the ancient castle any time. After Xia Hanyan avoided the attack of the black-armored knight, her lips moved slightly and her calm voice floated in the air. It was not easy to come here. How can we back out? The group of disciples exchanged glances and made the same decision. One by one, figures flashed into the ancient castle. Why haven't I seen the armor on your body before? Just as Chu Bei was about to enter the ancient castle, Xia Hanyan's voice came into his ears. Niece Hanyan, if you want it, I can give it to you in the future. Chu Bei joked with Xia Hanyan and quickened his pace. Just as he passed through the main door, a strong medicinal fragrance came to his nose. Then, he heard the sounds of fighting. These fighting sounds came from different corners. Looks like there are a lot of treasures here. Otherwise, they would not have fallen out with each other. Relying on the weak light, Chu Bei paced around and carefully observed everything in the ancient castle. Here, it was not as magnificent as he imagined. Instead, it was gloomy. Black pillars, gray candlesticks, flickering candlelight. The tall gray inner walls were covered with dark green vines. There were so many of them that even the damp ground was covered with green spots. In the gloomy ancient castle, there were 10 rooms of different sizes arranged in an orderly manner. At this moment, most of the rooms were filled with lights and fighting sounds. "Save me!" Suddenly, the fighting stopped in one of the rooms. What followed was a cry for help mixed with misery and pain. That person's cry for help was very loud and repeated over and over again. The fighting sounds in the ancient castle gradually stopped. After a while, people ran out from the other rooms. They followed the cry for help and walked towards the same room with curiosity. Chu Bei also walked out of the room. He walked slowly and carefully. Just as someone arrived at the door of the room, the cry for help suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the sound of water splashing could be heard from that room. When the sound of water sounded, everyone was puzzled. Suddenly, a blood-red pillar of light lit up in the room. When the strange blood-red pillar of light appeared in the room, the group of people closest to the door slowly retreated with vigilance. Walala! Suddenly, a blood-red ball of light flew out from the room and entered everyone's line of sight. When everyone saw what it looked like, they were all stunned. It was a ball of water. However, the color was very frightening. It was actually like blood. In the center of the ball of water, there was a piece of jade that was emitting golden light. Illusory jade! This must be an illusory jade! Everyone's gaze was cast on the jade. Their eyes were filled with greed. Their screams were mixed with excitement. That's not right. I heard Jiatian shouting for help. Where is he now? One of them seemed to want to hit something. He glanced into the room, and his face changed. Yeah, where is he? Could it be that he disappeared into thin air? Everyone frowned. Chapter 753. Walala, just as the crowd was looking for Jiatian, they saw the blood-red blob floating in the air emitting a dazzling light. Then, the blob's figure changed under everyone's gaze. First, it transformed into a ferocious beast and roared angrily. It opened its mouth wide and glanced at the crowd below. Blood-red saliva kept dripping from its white fangs. Before the crowd could react, it transformed into a fluttering butterfly, one above and one below. Then, it split into 7 smaller snakes. They stuck out their forked tongues and hissed at the crowd. Finally, the 7 snakes merged into one and turned into a huge and terrifying ghost face. Looking at the crowd below, the ghost face seemed to be very excited and swayed back and forth. Suddenly, the ghost face stopped swaying, and a strange sound came out of its mouth, and a thin stream of water shot out. The red light was very fast and shot at the young man closest to it. In the next second, the young man who was entangled by the stream of water had a look of fear on his face. Then, his face was full of pain and his body struggled violently. Save me! Save me! The young man's cry for help had just sounded. Before the crowd could react, the blood on his face began to fade and his face became pale. Walala, at this time, the ghost face turned into the blood-red blob again. It swayed slightly and swallowed the pale and powerless young man. It's gone just like that! The crowd's pupils shrank, especially those who were at the front. They subconsciously took a few steps back. Before they knew the details of the blob, they had to be vigilant. Do we still want this illusion jade? A woman in the field swallowed her saliva and glanced at the blood-red blob with fear. She wanted to retreat. Opportunities are found in danger, a long-haired young man said with a greedy look and jumped up. Walala, just as the long-haired young man was about to touch the blob, the blob suddenly split into dozens of water snakes and shot at the long-haired young man. Swish! Although the long-haired young man was on guard, his chest was still pierced by a water snake. The wound was bleeding profusely. Looking at the severely injured long-haired young man, no one dared to go forward. The blood-red blob seemed to be more powerful than they had imagined. In front of him, the Jinwu cloak seemed to be completely useless. Since my martial nephews are so modest, I shall accept this illusion jade on your behalf. Chu Bei straightened his Yuan Tian cloak and swaggered towards the blood-red ball of water. Little martial uncle, are you not afraid of death? That's right, didn't you see that Jia Tian and Fang Heng are dead? It wasn't easy to get here. It's best to be vigilant, and not act rashly before finding its weakness. Don't provoke this thing. Why don't we wait for the teachers to come in? While everyone was talking, Chu Bei's right hand had already reached for the blood-red water ball. Crash! Chi! Chi! The blood-red ball of water shook violently, and several water snakes attacked Chu Bei from different directions. However, these water snakes did not penetrate the latter's body. Instead, they created a series of clear clashing sounds. At this moment, the blue light on Chu Bei's cloak suddenly appeared, and an invisible force was entangled with the water snakes. Little guy, your attack is useless against me. Chu Bei did not care if the water ball could understand him, and said jokingly. His right hand suddenly exerted force. Bang! However, just as Chu Bei's right hand reached into the water ball and grabbed the illusion jade, a huge force surged out of the jade and shook him away. Under the rebound force, Chu Bei's body flew out. Almost at the same time, the black-armored knights fighting the three teachers outside the hall stopped fighting, and then their bodies bloomed with a terrifying black light. The next moment, the three black-armored knights intertwined and formed a 5-meter-tall giant knight at a strange speed. The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and the giant rider swept past Xia Hanyan. In an instant, it appeared below the blood-red ball of water. What happened? Xia Hanyan and Zhou Qing ran into the castle. Whoosh! The sound of water was heard, and under everyone's gaze, the illusion jade in the water ball sank into the giant knight's forehead. Suddenly, the giant knight's eyes shot out a red light. Where did this big guy come from? The disciples looked at each other with confusion in their eyes. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, black fog gushed out of the giant knight's body, as if it had evolved, and a layer of thick armor covered its body. The armor was dark, and the eyes under the steel helmet shot out a red light. The next moment, the knight's body made a friction sound, and at the same time, a violent and terrifying aura swept out. Facing this aura fluctuation that was like a natural disaster, Xia Hanyan, Zhou Qing and the rest's faces changed. Roar! A huge roar that seemed to come from ancient times resounded in the castle. The terrifying sound wave reverberated in the air, and the surrounding bricks and stones were shattered. At this moment, the giant knight was like a wild beast that had awakened from a deep sleep. The roar was filled with heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality, as if it was filled with endless destruction and killing. The source of the roar seemed to represent the most terrifying disaster in the world. However, it was such a wild beast that was staring at Xia Hanyan, Zhou Qing and the rest. The illusion jade is providing it with energy. As long as we take down the illusion jade, this big guy will disintegrate on its own. Zhou Qing and Qingyu looked at each other, and then the true martial qi in their bodies surged. After condensing the spirit armor on the surface of their bodies, the tips of their feet suddenly touched the ground, and their bodies shot towards the giant knight like cannonballs. Bang! Bang! Just as Zhou Qing and Qingyu arrived in front of the giant knight raised its pitch-black right palm and slapped down. Its speed was extremely fast, and it did not give the two of them any time to react. Suddenly, the void shook, and 2 clouds of blood mist exploded. Zhou! Instructor Zhou, impossible! Impossible! The 2 instructors are both martial spirits, how can they not defeat this big guy? Why would such a terrifying existence be in the purple cloud illusion? It's just the weakest illusion. What do we do now? Do we still want the illusion jade? The group of disciples was terrified of the giant knight, and their bodies were trembling. Under the terrifying pressure, their feet seemed to have stiffened, and they could not summon the strength to escape at all. Even the cultivation level of the instructor, martial spirit, was turned into a blood mist by the other party's palm. Their mere mortal evolution state cultivation level was not enough. Thud, thud, thud. The giant knight walked towards the group of disciples unhurriedly. With every step, there would be a low sound of footsteps. This sound bombarded the soul of every disciple. With every step the other party took, they were one step closer to death. At this moment, Xia Hanyan's expression also changed. Her eyes were filled with fear, and there was a sense of powerlessness between her brows. The other party was too strong, so strong that she could not even have the thought of resisting. All she could do was wait quietly. Death. Sizzle, however, just as Xia Hanyan and the other disciples were feeling discouraged, the temperature in the air suddenly rose. A flame giant that was about the same size as the giant knight slowly walked in from the entrance of the castle. Chapter 754. Why is there another one? Does the heavens want us dead? No, they're not together. Ha ha, no matter which one of them survives, our ending will not change. The gazes of the disciples switched back and forth between the flame giant and the giant knight, their faces ashen. Roar! The giant knight suddenly roared and its huge body soared into the air. Due to the excessive force, a half-meter deep and 2-meter wide circular pit appeared under its feet. Under everyone's gaze, the giant knight punched the flame giant with the power to destroy the world. Wherever the fist passed, the void trembled and rippled. Chi-chi. However, it was this terrifying punch that made everyone unable to resist. Before it touched the body of the flame giant, it was melted by the black flame spurted out from the latter's mouth. Immediately after, the flame giant punched. This punch was silent. Boom! However, the moment this calm punch touched the giant knight, an unparalleled energy that could destroy the heavens and the earth erupted. In an instant, the entire ancient castle was wrapped in black flames, and then the wall tiles turned into nothingness. Xia Hanyan looked at her surroundings in horror. The strange black flame was floating in front of them. Whether it was intentional or not, the black flames that could even burn the void avoided them. In their line of sight, they could vaguely see that the invincible giant knight was collapsing at a visible speed. The black flames gradually dissipated, and a head emerged from the flame giant. It was an old man, his face full of wrinkles and traces of age. The most conspicuous feature was the long scar on the left side of his face. "Thank you for saving my life, Senior!" Xia Hanyan glanced at the fantasy jade hovering in front of the flame giant, and her gaze fell on the old man's head. With a respectful expression, she said, "I am Xia Hanyan, a mentor of the Purple Cloud sect. This year's fantasy jade, I will accept it on your behalf." The old man glanced at Xia Hanyan, his voice hoarse. This flame giant was naturally transformed by Chu Bei. When he noticed that the situation was not right, Chu Bei immediately ate the flame fruit. As for the appearance of the old man now, it was because he had used the ability of the face-saving fruit. As for the fact that only his head was exposed, it was completely because the face fruit was of little value. It could only change his appearance. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Bei stretched out his hand towards the illusory jade. Rumble! Just as Chu Bei grasped the illusion jade, the ground began to shake violently, and the world began to collapse. "Is the illusion about to disappear?" Xia Hanyan murmured softly. Strange red threads appeared on her body. The red threads became thicker and thicker until they wrapped around her entire body like a cocoon. Amidst the crisp cracking sounds, Xia Hanyan's body in the cocoon gradually became transparent until it disappeared. At the same time, the bodies of the other disciples also underwent the same changes until they disappeared. The illusion is gone. It seems that the fantasy jade has been obtained by someone else. I wonder who the lucky one is. Last year's illusion jade was obtained by senior brother Chio. His cultivation directly broke through from Exuvia 9th celestial layer to 4-star martial spirit. I'm so jealous! At the peak of Violet Cloud Peak, hundreds of disciples gathered together to discuss. They're out! They're out! Above, the black vortex at the entrance of the illusion gradually dissipated, and more disciples poured out from the gap. Senior Martial Brother Lu, what's on that island? Are there opportunities everywhere? I'm still too afraid of death, so I didn't dare to try. Senior Martial Brother Lu, you must have seen the fantasy jade, right? Quickly tell us who obtained it. Eh? Why do I only see Instructor Xia, Instructor Chen and Instructor Zhou? Looking at his junior martial brothers and sisters who surrounded him with anticipation, Lu Fei scratched his head awkwardly. The center of the ravine is called Moonlight Island. There's an ancient castle on the island, and the fantasy jade should be inside. But my cultivation is not enough, and I was scared away by the flesh-killing bug guarding the ancient castle. As for who obtained the fantasy jade, you guys should ask Instructor Xia. Not far away, Xia Hanyan and the other disciples who were at Exuvia 9th celestial layer were already surrounded. What? There's actually such a terrifying existence in the ancient castle. Instructor Zhou and Instructor Chen are dead. If that's the case, this year's Violet Cloud illusion is quite dangerous. Luckily I didn't go in, or else I would have lost my life in there. The fantasy jade was taken by an old man? He can even turn into flames. His cultivation has already surpassed martial spirit, right? Then why wasn't he repelled by the illusion? In the end, so many of our senior martial brothers died in vain? The fantasy jade was actually given to an old man, and we don't even know the identity of this old man. Have any of you seen Chubei? Lu Fei's gaze swept across the surroundings. I didn't see him come out. Speaking of junior martial uncle, we really have to thank him. When we just entered, we encountered a mutated wild boar. If it wasn't for him, we would all be dead. I also owe junior martial uncle my life. He was the one who killed those ghosts. What a pity, the genius junior martial uncle just came back and died in the illusion. The disciples who were saved by Chubei couldn't help but have their eyes turn red. Woof! 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 Suddenly, the violent barking of a dog resounded, echoing throughout the entire Purple Cloud sect. Looking up, a huge black shadow appeared where the illusion dissipated. It was a big black dog that covered the sky. As the barking faded, the big black dog gradually became transparent, until it completely disappeared from everyone's sight. Damn, this dog looks so familiar! Damn, could it be the ancestor of that Xiaohei dog that chased us? Thinking of that dog makes me angry. I was almost killed by it. The disciples who entered the illusion gritted their teeth, their faces full of anger. At the same time, Chubei, who was rushing to the courtyard on the mountainside, stopped in his tracks. Looking at the area where the big black dog disappeared, the corners of his mouth twitched nonstop. Others may not recognize it, but he wouldn't be mistaken. This was definitely the Xiaohei dog that he had trampled on. However, for some reason, this Xiaohei dog had become so huge. With that size just now, if he met this dog again, it would most likely be him who was trampled by it. After recovering from his shock, Chubei didn't think too much about it. After all, he wouldn't have the chance to meet this black dog in the future. As soon as he returned to the courtyard, Chubei closed the door. Then, the Genesis Heaven Chi in his body circulated, activating the fantasy jade. In a split second, the fantasy jade blossomed with resplendent light. At this moment, Chubei felt the cells in his body pulsating rhythmically. The true martial chi in the fantasy jade was pure without the slightest impurity. It directly integrated into Chubei's meridians. Exuvia 4th Celestial Layer. Exuvia 5th Celestial Layer. Exuvia 6th Celestial Layer. Bang! A low explosion sound came from Chu Bei's body. True martial chi gushed out from his meridians and a layer of light blue armor appeared. Spirit armor, the symbol of a martial spirit. Crack! When the fantasy jade shattered, Chu Bei's cultivation had already risen to a 3-star martial spirit. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.